To build a Mecha, my secret stash was exposed by my wife. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 201. When did Suze register as a young scientist? The reason why Suze's becoming an academician was not announced to the public was for the same reason as before, to ensure Suze's absolute safety, both physically and mentally. And now, the reason why no one stopped Ye Yingling from registering Suze as a young scientist was not for any other reason than that, but because with Suze's help and the joint efforts of many people in the scientific community, the national strength of Xiaoguo is now vastly different from what it used to be. After the meeting early this morning, the old man also gave a fair evaluation of the program Finding Hidden Money. If Suze's contributions to the country could be fully publicized through this program, then Suze would receive the respect he deserves. The man whom Ye Yingling called Brother Liu, upon hearing what Ye Yingling said, immediately expressed disbelief. Yingling, are you mistaken? Our app can't possibly have vulnerabilities or operational errors. Liu Meng, who was responsible for maintaining the app, put down the instant noodles he was about to eat and said to Ye Yingling with great certainty. Liu Meng's confident tone stemmed from his confidence in the technology. Of course, if it were an app developed by Liu Meng himself for young scientists, his technical skills wouldn't be exceptionally high or low. That wouldn't guarantee his confidence. Liu Meng's confidence stemmed from the app's development technology. Brother Liu, when did you become so confident? Based on their usual interactions, Liu Meng always immediately addressed any vulnerabilities he heard about, never making such confident statements. Yingling, our young scientists are different now. Our app is based on Kunpeng, so vulnerabilities are impossible. Hearing Liu Meng's explanation, Ye Yingling understood that the young scientist's app couldn't possibly have vulnerabilities. Kunpeng is a software that has only recently become popular with the military. Its powerful automatic monitoring capabilities and highly sophisticated underlying system ensure that apps developed based on the Kunpeng platform are unlikely to have logical vulnerabilities. Initially, Kunpeng was only used by the military's top-tier classified agencies and core departments. Since the advent of Kunpeng, the number of times the military was attacked due to system vulnerabilities plummeted to zero. Subsequently, as technology advanced, realizing that attacking military equipment was ineffective, hacking attacks on government websites and civilian web pages intensified. At the same time, Kunpeng expanded its usage scope as it was developed. The Young Scientists Institute, as an important functional department, was among the first to use it. Ye Yingling had heard of Kunpeng's reputation. After all, its developers were her idol. Fuxing, Brother Liu, since our software can't possibly have vulnerabilities, why does it show that Suze's registration as a young scientist is already taken? Ye Yingling confided her doubts to Liu Meng. Hearing this, Liu Meng slurped down a mouthful of fragrant instant noodles and said calmly, if it shows as already registered, then it must be registered. But Brother Liu, I asked Suze's wife, and she said she hadn't heard of this. Ye Yingling continued. Liu Meng, who had watched some of the exciting content from the live stream, said with a tone of schadenfreude, I'm a man, and I understand men. Since Suze has kept so many things from his wife, it seems quite possible he'd keep this one a secret too, but shouldn't this be a very honorable thing? Ye Yingling had seen many young people become young scientists, and they all wanted the whole world to know that they had become young scientists. The fact that someone would choose to hide this was something Ye Yingling really couldn't understand. It's someone else's privacy. Ask him yourself, you might get the answer, but our website doesn't have Suze's information published. Yingling, you're late to the party. The public disclosure system was only implemented 6 years ago. Maybe Suze was already a scientist before that, so there's no need for public disclosure. After hanging up the phone with Liu Meng, Ye Yingling went to Gao Luofei and said to Gao Luofei, Bing Bing, and the viewers in the live stream, Fifei, I've asked our technicians. Our system recently underwent an update, so there couldn't be any vulnerabilities. Although Ye Yingling didn't say anything more, everyone present understood the meaning behind her words. Since it wasn't a system problem, there was only one possibility. Suze had already registered. Ha ha ha, I knew it. I told you so, but you didn't believe me. Now what are you saying? Holy crap, Professor Su was already a young scientist. Why wasn't it publicized on the website? No publicized. And he's already a young scientist? Is there some inside story? After all, Gao Luofei's family background is there. It's quite possible. Didn't you see Gao Luofei's surprised expression just now? Gao Luofei clearly didn't know about this. You haven't forgotten Gao Luofei's profession, have you? She's an award-winning actress. It's perfectly normal that we wouldn't notice her acting skills. Impossible. Our Fifei wouldn't lie to us. Exactly. Gao Luofei and Suze only got married a year ago. Aren't you going too far with the smear campaign against Professor Su? Can you talk about facts? You people must have been paid off. I've noticed a lot of haters in the live stream since today. Haven't you seen Professor Su's research capabilities? Doesn't he deserve it? I admit Professor Su's research capabilities are indeed strong, but even strength must follow the rules. Everyone is equal. Since the rules are established, they must be followed. Yinglan, is there a way to find out when Suze registered? Chapter 202 Suzette, are you willing to serve as the leader of the Phoenix Research Group? Gao Luofei and her companions naturally noticed the comments from the viewers in the live stream. Gao Luofei remained calm upon seeing these comments, but Bingbing was visibly furious. Suze's scientific talent had been evident to all in the past 2 days, yet some still questioned whether he had gotten his position through connections. While Gao Luofei's expression was initially composed after hearing Yi Yinglan mention that Suze was already a young scientist, Bingbing knew this was the prelude to eruption. After all, Suze had once again concealed something from Gao Luofei. Although it wasn't about money, it still constituted concealment. Now, the comments from the live stream viewers became the catalyst. Since it was said that Suze was already a young scientist without Gao Luofei's knowledge, and so many people in the live stream were questioning his status, Gao Luofei wanted to find out exactly when Suze had become a young scientist. Yinglan, could you help me check this information? Faced with Gao Luofei's renewed request, Yi Yinglan asked hesitantly. Fifei, although you are Suze's wife, I'm still not sure about this matter. I need to consult with my superiors. After all, this matter involves the privacy of a young scientist, and Yi Yinglan wasn't sure if it was feasible. It's alright, Yinglan, you can ask first. It's okay if it doesn't work out. Less than a day after Suze's initial Mecha data arrived in the capital, a research group called Phoenix was established. Phoenix, as the name suggests, symbolizes the rebirth of Xia Kingdom. As long as Mecha technology makes breakthroughs and becomes widespread, then with such superior performance, Xia Kingdom's status will also be reborn like a phoenix. Secretly, personnel were drawn from various places overnight to go to an underground research base to tackle the relevant data of the initial Mecha. This research group had a powerful lineup. The most basic personnel in the research group were all people who had become young scientists. Currently, the deputy leader, the person in charge of each branch of technology, and the members of this research group have all been determined, except for one person, the leader of the research group. Mechas are basically confined to science fiction movies, novels, and TV shows. Even countries that have researched them have only scratched the surface. Technology is different from other things. The barriers to entry are impossible to overcome by an individual without the opportunities of someone like Suzette. Because the research team involved so many technical fields, the requirements for the team leader were extremely stringent: experience, ability, and resilience. After much deliberation, those capable of the position were either too old and lacking energy to handle the task, or their current research projects were at a critical juncture, about to yield results, leaving them unable to spare the time. It was under these circumstances that academician Li Jianguo, one of the deputy team leaders, thought of someone, Fuxing, who had been silent for a year, seemingly taking a break. This position belonged to Fuxing. Academician Li Jianguo's suggestion, after being reported through multiple levels, finally reached the old man's desk. The old man, however, did not immediately make a decision. Let's ask Fuxing for their opinion on this. Fuxing can decide for themselves. After all, Suze is currently on vacation. And whether he accepts this job is up to him. Meanwhile, the secretary reporting this matter also gained a new understanding of the long-rumored Fuxing. Who is the old man? A man of absolute authority. Yet even such a person still needs to consult Fuxing. This shows just how important Fuxing is. On the other side, Suzette, who was studying technical materials, had just closed a PDF file with 1,389 pages. Compared to last time, Suze discovered that the complete manufacturing technology for humanoid all-weather combat mechas was on a completely different level compared to the initial mech technology. Even relying on his strong learning ability, comprehension, and memory to create a finished mech far surpassing the initial mech and reaching the level of Iron Man. Money is a minor issue, the main problem is time. If Suze were to manufacture it alone, it would take at least 1 to 2 years. In Suze's view, this speed was far too slow, far exceeding his expectations. Fortunately, Suze had no one to confide in. If industry professionals knew, they would be mortified and wish they could die. Comparisons are odious, they pour their hearts and souls into paper or technological innovation. And Suze was complaining that over a year was too long for something like a mecha? This was practically Versailles. Although he felt the time was excessive, there was no good solution at the moment. Instead of worrying about it, he decided to study. Suze once again opened the compressed file containing a large amount of knowledge. Just as he opened the next folder, preparing to continue studying the technical materials and complete technology for manufacturing humanoid all-weather combat mechas, a peculiar ringtone sounded. Hearing the ringtone, Suze immediately put down his work, went to the source of the ringtone, and answered the phone. "Hello, sir, this is Fuchsing." Suze's tone was extremely respectful. Clearly, Suze held the old man in genuine respect. "Fuchsing, how have you been lately? Are you enjoying life and work?" The old man's kind voice rang out, smiling as he asked Suze. "Not bad, very satisfied," Suze replied with a smile. "I'm calling you this time because I need to consult you about a task. Would you be willing to take on the role of leader for the Phoenix Research Group?" If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203, A Revival. We'll definitely do better than Suze. The Phoenix Research Group was established based on Project Nirvana. Its main research focuses the technology related to the initial mech you provided to the nation. All members of this group are present, except for the group leader position, which is vacant. We haven't found a suitable leader for this position after much deliberation. Organically, you're currently on leave, so we won't force you to take on this role. After all, the initial mech is based on your technology, and you probably don't have high expectations of creating an identical one. I'll send you a list of personnel in a bit, see if you're willing to take the role. Facing Suzette, the old man knew his temperament well. He disliked beating around the bush and making people guess. Therefore, the old man spoke very directly. Frankly, the old man wasn't very likely that Suze would agree to take on the role of leader of the Phoenix Group, which was based on Suze's technology. Over the years, the old man knew very well that Suze was a very adventurous person. If he achieves a significant breakthrough, he will unexpectedly choose a completely new field to continue his research. Suze has already independently mastered the initial mecha technology, even creating a perfectly formed mecha. Under these circumstances, he has little interest in leading a team to research a technology that he considers outdated. After receiving the personnel list from the old man through confidential channels, Suze opened it and took a look. Among the academicians on the list, Suze saw very familiar names such as Li Jianguo. He had interacted with these academicians in various fields such as mechanics, materials science, chemistry, and physics over the past 10 years due to work. As for the young scientists who are just beginning to emerge, or the aspiring academicians, Suze had heard some of their names from the academicians, but others he had never even heard of. After carefully reviewing the research team members and the equipment, materials, and funding that the country would provide, Suze finally spoke after the old man's long wait. "I agree, but I have a condition." Suze's words really caught the old man off guard. However, after recovering, the old man responded happily, "What condition? Just tell me." As long as Suze agreed, everything was easy to discuss. "I won't go to the research base, I'll just communicate with them using software." Suze paused, then continued, "Later, I'll draft a list of equipment and materials. I see some equipment on this list is missing, so we need to prepare it accordingly." "No problem, that's a small matter. Since you've agreed, I'll arrange it immediately." The old man asked Suze with a questioning tone. "Fuchsing, I'm curious. Given your personality, you shouldn't agree." Yes, as the old man had previously thought, Suzette indeed wouldn't agree. But who said Suzette took over the Phoenix team just for the initial mech? Suzette was worried about not having enough manpower to conduct research on the humanoid all-weather combat mech. The matter the old man mentioned was like a windfall, delivering a top-notch team directly to Suzette. Suzette wasn't stupid. Why would he refuse such a good thing? As for the final deliverables, wouldn't a mech comparable to Iron Man be far superior to the initial mech Suzette had already rejected? The country would be overjoyed. Why would they hold Suzette accountable? After a brief exchange of pleasantries, the old man hung up the phone to arrange things for Suzette. Fuchsing agrees. From now on, Fuchsing will be the leader of the Phoenix team. Now that the matter was settled, the old man quickly issued the order. The news of Fuchsing becoming the leader of the Phoenix team quickly spread throughout the entire team. Almost everyone knew that their research team leader was the renowned Fuchsing. With Fuchsing involved, things are definitely going to speed up our research. Now I can brag to people that I've actually worked under Fuchsing's coattails. I heard this Mecha technology was bought from a young man named Suzette, not some famous researcher, just an ordinary toy technician. If someone like that can develop Mecha technology, I believe that under Fuchsing's leadership, we can definitely develop one even better. Exactly. We have so many people, so many professionals, we're definitely better than him, right? We're professionally trained, how could we be inferior to Suzette? Looking at the spirited group, Li Jiangguo, Hans Hangwen, Sun Lijun, and other deputy leaders of the research group were also infected by their youthful energy. But if these young people knew that Fuchsing was Suzette, how would they feel about what they were saying now? Old Li, with Fuchsing involved, your kid's technology shouldn't be a problem at all. Hearing Hans Hangwen's words, Li Jiangguo nodded. Indeed, given Fuchsing's technological level, Suzette should master this Mecha technology very quickly. Old Li, why don't you ask that kid again and see if he can join our research group? He's a promising talent, we can't waste him. No use, he's thinking about a peaceful life with his wife and a warm bed. Besides, he's not short of money, there's no need for him to suffer like us. Alright, let's not talk about him anymore, we should get ready to start working. Fifei, too much information is impossible to access, but if you know the joining time, I can still provide it. After Yi Yinglin returned, she told Gao Luofei the final results of their discussion. Chapter 204 Suzette may be a member of the Thousand Talents program or an academician. Although only the date Suzette joined could be found, and no other related information, that was enough. Gao Luofei didn't want to know anything else, she only wanted to know when Suzette joined as a young scientist. This information was enough to silence the gossip among the viewers in the live stream. If the joining time was before the public announcement system began, then all their reasons for suspecting Suzette of using connections would fall apart. As for whether the joining time would be during the public announcement period, Gao Luofei was certain it wouldn't. After all, everyone in the family had witnessed how her father, Gao Yuanshan, had treated Suzette. Under such circumstances, why would Gao Yuanshan help Suzette use so-called back channels? Alright, just finding the joining information is enough, Gao Luofei said to Yi Yinglin. At this moment, the live stream chat was buzzing with discussion because of Yi Yinglin's words. Can we only find the joining information? Fine, that'll shut these trolls up. I feel it's completely unnecessary. This kind of behavior is just a waste of resources to prove their so-called innocence. Exactly, these trolls will quiet down if we ignore them. Why can we only check the joining date? That's unfair. There must be something they're hiding. Exactly, what good is just the joining date? What was the reason Suzette joined, or what role did he play in that invention? All of that should be made public. Some people keep saying that Suzette's inventions these past few days haven't proven his research capabilities. I want to say that your current excellence doesn't cover up your past mistakes. Everyone, please wait a moment. The leader has arranged for colleagues to retrieve the relevant information. It will take some time, Yi Yinglin explained, seeing the increasingly agitated comments in the live stream. However, despite Yi Yinglin's words, the viewers in the live stream remained unmoved, and the comments continued to be heatedly discussed. At this moment, inside the office building for young scientists, considering the public opinion, Xinggang, the supervisor in charge of the daily maintenance of the young scientists, agreed to Yi Yinglin's request after comprehensive consideration. After arranging for someone to search for Suzette's information in the database, Xinggang's office was soon knocked on. When Lu Wan entered, he said to Xinggang, "Director Xing, The information you asked me to find about someone named Suze shows no such person in our database. No such person. How could that be? Hearing Luan's words, Zinggang was quite surprised. If it showed that Suze had already registered, how could there be no such person? Was Suze's name entered incorrectly, or was other information entered incorrectly? Hearing Zingang's explanation, if that were the case, it would leave a bad impression on the leadership, making them think that this person was incompetent. Therefore, Luan immediately explained, Officer Zing, I've searched our entire database for both Suze and its transliteration, and there's no one who matches this requirement. If there's no such person, that's strange. Why does our system show that this person exists? Zinggang was completely baffled. The system couldn't possibly be malfunctioning. It showed that this person had registered, but no information about them could be found in their database. This was too perplexing. Officer Zing, I have a guess. But I don't know if it's convenient to say it. Go ahead. Hearing Luan's words, Zinggang spoke directly. With Zingang's permission, Luan revealed his possible guess. Officer Zing, I remember that the database our app connects to not only our young scientists database, but also the databases of the Thousand Talents program and academicians of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, since it shows that Suze has registered, but our database doesn't have any information about him. Do you think it's because Suze wasn't registered in our database? At this point, Zinggang understood the meaning behind Luan's words. You mean Suze might be in the Thousand Talents program and the academician database? After Zinggang stated his conclusion, Luan immediately chimed in. Yes, Director Zing, that's exactly what I mean. Your guess makes sense. It's currently the only possible explanation for this. I never expected it. Never expected that Suze would be selected for the Thousand Talents program. He's so young and promising. Compared to him, you and I are truly inferior. Thinking of Suzette, who is not yet 30, and already a member of the Thousand Talents program, Zinggang couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. This achievement was enough to surpass the vast majority of people. Director Zing, what you said is incorrect. Oh? What's incorrect? Hearing what Luan said, Zinggang raised an eyebrow, not understanding what he had said wrong. Director Zing, you were also a young and promising person back then. Hearing Luan's flattering words, Zingyi didn't show any emotion on the surface, but the smile in his eyes betrayed his true thoughts. Alright, try to cut down on the flattery in the future. Zinggang was easygoing, but the older he got, the more he loved hearing nice things. It was precisely because Zinggang was about to retire that he was more sensitive to public opinion. He didn't want to stumble and cause trouble in his retirement, preventing him from retiring with honor. Yes, Director Zing, I'll be careful. Luan nodded repeatedly after hearing Zinggang's admonition. After Luan left, Zinggang murmured to himself, this Suze seems to be quite a figure, very capable. I'll have to be careful in the future. Zinggang picked up his phone and dialed Yi Yinglin's number, informing her of the news. Xiao Yi, I had someone investigate Suze's information, and there are results, but the results are quite unexpected. Hearing Zinggang's words, Yi Yinglin asked curiously, Zinggang, what happened? Chapter 205 Japan prepares for action. To make her story more convincing and prevent anyone from suspecting she had orchestrated it, Yi Yinglin turned on the speakerphone when she received Zinggang's call. Zinggang's strange tone and words reached the ears of the viewers in the live stream. This immediately excited the online trolls in the chat. His words and tone clearly indicated a problem with his search results. See? His true colors are revealed. I told you there was a problem. Deception. Disappointment. A conspiracy. This is truly disappointing. Seeing the reactions in the live stream chat, Yi Yinglin was also affected. Could it be that there was a conspiracy behind Suze's joining the Young Scientists program? Just as Yi Yinglin's gaze fell on Gao Luofei, Zinggang's next words left her stunned, surprised, and incredulous. I just had Luan search our database, and we found no information about Suzette. No? How could there be no information? Zinggang's words sounded utterly unbelievable to Yi Yinglin. Since Suze has already registered, why isn't there any information about him? Gao Luofei's eyes flickered upon hearing Zinggang's words. Could it be that she misunderstood Suzette, and Suze wasn't a young scientist? Could the app really have made a mistake? Xiao Yi, I've also analyzed it. The only possibility for this situation is that Suze didn't initially register as a young scientist with us, but for some reason, directly registered as a member of the Thousand Talents program or an academician. Suze is in their database, so it shows that he has already registered. What? Are you sure this isn't a joke? Suze is a member of the Thousand Talents program? Although Xingang said that Suze might be in the database of the Thousand Talents program and academicians, what level of person is an academician? Everyone was already quite astonished that Suze directly became a member of the Thousand Talents program. They had automatically ignored what Xingang meant by academician. Professor Su actually skipped the young scientist stage? Then it seems the technology he invented is at least second only to the initial mech, a truly groundbreaking technology. This is getting more and more interesting. Just how much is Professor Su hiding? Let's see what those trolls have to say now. Our Professor Su didn't use connections, he was just too outstanding, so he wasn't even registered as a young scientist. Little trolls, aren't you angry? Hey. After hanging up with Xingang, Yi Yinglin shrugged at Gao Luofei and said, Fifei, you heard the result too. I think our criminal investigation department's analysis makes a lot of sense. Considering all the factors, this is the only possibility. This matter has truly taken a dramatic turn. Gao Luofei originally thought Suze was hiding the fact that he had already become a young scientist, but the final result was that Suze hadn't actually hidden anything. He had only hidden the fact that he was a member of the Thousand Talents program. Project 1000, Gao Luofei murmured, vaguely recalling something like this before. She couldn't quite place where she'd seen or heard it. Noda-kun, the personnel are in position. The Japanese spies, having received the message, quickly took their positions. Considering Marui's double protection from the special forces and security departments, coupled with the strict checks and gun control measures implemented yesterday, Noda only had 6 pistols at his disposal. Automatic rifles were simply unavailable. Because of this limited firepower, the Japanese spies ultimately chose Hongdu City Airport as the location for the operation. The airport was densely populated with a diverse population, making it the ideal location. The Japanese spies, deeply embedded in Hongdu City for years, regardless of their current activities or positions, all rushed to the airport to take their positions. Even if their identities were exposed and years of hard work destroyed in the end because of this operation, it would be worth it as long as they got their hands on the hard drive storing Candle Dragon and the autopilot technology. Lord Blackhand, the personnel are in place. One of us has been planted among the airport ground staff. One of us is also among the airport crew. There are 2 people disguised as passengers in the airport passageway. Noda, after receiving his subordinate's report, immediately reported the personnel deployment to Blackhand. After all, it was a son-father relationship. Even though the son had ulterior motives, the necessary outward respect had to be maintained. Blackhand, after listening to Noda's report, offered corrections. The 2 people at the airport terminal must maintain a safe distance, lest one is exposed and both are doomed. Noda, I think you should also know the function of Candle Dragon. Although current information suggests that the Xia Kingdom's military and security departments do not have similar devices, we must be prepared. Unless there is sufficient certainty that the person we see is a real person, do not act. Here's what we'll do. Before I order you to act, do not act on your own. Understand? Understood? Although Noda was dissatisfied with Blackhand's demands, he dared not voice them. Team leader, the target has been identified. Should we proceed with the arrest? Almost simultaneously, the security personnel, through airport surveillance, quickly identified the Japanese spy Noda had mentioned in his conversation with Blackhand. No rush, wait a moment. Acting now would alert Blackhand, making him suspect he was being monitored. Since the person was already being monitored, there was no need to rush the arrest. They would wait for Guon and his team to deliberately create a suitable opportunity. Chapter 206 Japan knows it's impossible but still does it. A fall into pit, again in your wit. You've really gotten smarter. Now you know to consider the existence of the Candle Dragon. Since Blackhand and Noda want to confirm Marui's authenticity before considering taking action, Guo naturally wants to find a way to make them believe that the Marui they see is real. It's actually quite simple. The image generated by the Candle Dragon is, after all, a virtual image created through technological means. Virtual is not real, so it won't have any effect when passing through security devices, and the difference between real and fake will be easily distinguished. With this in mind, Guo discussed with Wu Hul through the communicator, saying, Captain Wu, you should also know the information from Blackhand and Noda. Here's what I'm thinking. My people contact the airport, and will tamper with the security devices. When Marui is detected, we'll control the instrument to appear as if she's real. Wu Hul thought about Guo's suggestion for a long time. weighed the pros and cons of the method, and then agreed. After all, the security department is still monitoring Black Hand, so it's understandable that they can't directly arrest Wu Hua. Although there's some danger, Wu Hua still agreed. The suspects have been identified. As long as the operation is swift, minimizing casualties and property damage should be a breeze. Expert Ma, we need your cooperation for a bit, Guoan briefly explained the situation to Ma Rui. Hearing Guoan's request for her cooperation, Ma Rui nodded and said, Team Leader Guo, rest assured, I will fully cooperate with your department, with such a powerful candle dragon, and the target being those two damned American and Japanese police spies lurking in China, causing sabotage and stealing classified technology. Ma Rui was more than willing to help. After agreeing on the plan, Ma Rui and her group's vehicle entered the main gate of Zhongdu City Airport. 6 specially customized, powerful vehicles tightly surrounded an armored vehicle. The display was incredibly impressive. Upon arrival, it immediately became the most eye-catching sight at Zhongdu City Airport. Holy crap, it's a 6x6 wheeled armored personnel carrier. This is the first time I've ever seen one. What's going on? Who's the important person inside? This setup is so cool. If I could experience something like this even once in my life, I'd die happy. Look at the people in the escort armored vehicles. They're all armed to the teeth, definitely elite soldiers. However, many people already know what happened in the live stream this morning. You guys didn't even know that? Looks like you didn't watch the live stream. Live stream? What live stream? Since you know, tell me, do you know why it's such a big setup? Do you know why that armored vehicle is so important? It's because a hard drive inside contains a terrifying weapon that strikes fear into the world, comparable to a nuclear weapon. Brother, you're exaggerating. Comparable to a nuclear weapon? What is that? Zhulan. Just search it online. Wow, it's Zhulan. I've heard of it. Holy crap, if that's the case, then this setup is really not an exaggeration. At this moment, Zhongdu City Airport naturally received instructions from the highest levels of the military. Given the importance of this matter, they dared not neglect it. Originally, according to the main person in charge of Zhongdu City Airport, since the matter was so important, to ensure everything went smoothly, the vehicles didn't need to stop for security checks. They could simply drive directly to the already evacuated and heavily guarded military aircraft. They would then depart directly for the capital. However, due to the intervention of the security department, this method couldn't be implemented in order to legitimately arrest the Japanese spies. So, when Ma Rui and her group arrived at Zhongdu Airport, they didn't immediately drive onto the tarmac. Instead, under everyone's watchful eyes, they stopped at the entrance of the terminal. Am I misunderstanding something? The Candle Dragon is so important, shouldn't the vehicle be driven directly to the tarmac? Why did they stop and get out? This is too hasty. What are the higher-ups at Zhongdu Airport doing? Have they lost their minds? If something goes wrong, who will be responsible? I think there must be foreign spies among the higher-ups at Zhongdu Airport, otherwise they wouldn't do something so stupid. I suggest the government investigate immediately and find this traitor. Clearly, after learning about the importance of the live stream hard drive, everyone was very angry about Zhongdu Airport's actions. However, facing everyone's accusations, Zhongdu Airport had no choice but to accept the situation. It wasn't that they didn't want to, but that they lacked the authority. They wanted to get rid of this huge problem as soon as possible, but they were powerless to do so. Regarding the complaints from netizens and passengers at the scene, the relevant service personnel at Zhongdu City Airport, while expressing their incomprehension of this behavior, could only follow the instructions of their superiors and appease them. Surrounded and protected by Wu Hu and others, Ma Rui disembarked from the armored vehicle. In her arms, she tightly clutched a briefcase containing a hard drive. Lock onto the target, observe the situation. The moment Ma Rui appeared, the Japanese spies already in position naturally focused their attention on her. In fact, not only the Japanese spies and the mastermind, but also other spies lurking in the shadows, regardless of their actions, showed greedy expressions towards the briefcase. If they could also possess this technology, they too could obtain the Candle Dragon, a powerful weapon. However, they remained rational. Although greedy, they knew that defenses were strengthened within China, especially after yesterday's events. Knowing it was futile, they naturally had no intention of taking action. Only Japan and the United States were foolish enough to knowingly attempt the impossible. Expert Ma, please. Hearing Guoan's words, Ma Rui naturally understood what he meant. As Ma Rui and her group began to move, the candle dragon quietly activated without their knowledge. During this time, Marui and the suitcase's positions also changed. Chapter 207. Do you have any information about the initial mech? Lord Blackhand, I have a feeling something's not right. Noda looked at everything unfolding before him and sensed something amiss. Logically, this shouldn't be happening. Such a significant event, even if the head of Nakatoshi Airport were an idiot, wouldn't be handled this way. Military and security personnel would immediately take over and prepare for action. Lord Blackhand, perhaps we should postpone this operation. Blackhand didn't accept Noda's request. Although Blackhand also sensed something was wrong and felt like someone was watching him, he looked around but found nothing suspicious. Blackhand didn't understand why things had turned out this way, but this was a golden opportunity. As for success or failure, Blackhand had already prepared for the worst. Even if there were casualties, they were his sons in Japan. He had many more sons to lose. What did it matter? Proceed as planned. Everything as usual. Obey my orders. Hearing Blackhand's words, Noda's fists clenched instinctively. Because he knew that Blackhand didn't care whether the men he sent out today returned or not. Blackhand was truly ruthless. Understood, Lord Blackhand. On the surface, Noda remained calm, maintaining his respect and obedience to Blackhand. Noda relayed Blackhand's orders to his subordinates as before. Listen to my commands. After saying this, Noda adjusted his position, choosing a safer and easier escape spot, even though his view was limited. Although Noda had kept his location a secret from Blackhand and no one else knew it, he still chose a safer location just in case. Soon, Wu Hui, Guon, and Marui arrived at the security gate. Now, Blackhand watched their reactions even more closely. Ding, please pass, ding, please pass, ding, please pass. Wu Hui and the others passed through one by one, then stood guard at the security gate. Upon arriving at Marui's location, under the watchful eyes of Blackhand and his men, the fake Marui passed through with a ding, please pass. Seeing this, Blackhand immediately ordered, now. Immediately. Begin the operation. As soon as Blackhand finished speaking, Noda began directing his men to move. Having received Noda's orders through their earpieces, the Japanese spies in disguise began their operation. Xiaoli, what are you doing? How come you have a gun? A gun, help, oh no, someone's robbing us at gunpoint. At a single command, these people, who outwardly appeared as refined gentlemen and gentlewomen, all shed their disguises, revealing their ugly true colors. One by one, they pulled out pistols, ready to fire, and began their operation. However, those who had just begun their movement were unaware that they had already been locked onto. My hand. Just as they reached them, preparing to act, the ferocious Special Forces soldiers shot them in the wrist, their pistols falling to the ground. Then, amidst their screams, they were pinned to the ground, their heads pressed down by knees, their hands behind their backs, unable to move. Things happened so fast, the crowd, who had scattered in shock just moments before, found the situation had completely reversed. Holy crap, that was fast. That reaction speed, is that a super soldier? So cool. That combat power is incredible. I was just about to run away, and you're telling me it's over. I wonder which country these spies are from. With that kind of combat power, are they out of their minds? Daring to rob people like that, clap clap clap. After capturing all 16 Japanese spies, they were taken away by special personnel. They would face the most severe trial. It's unclear who started it. Initially only 1 or 2 people clapped, but later, more and more people in this Hongdu City airport joined in the clapping. Clearly, everyone greatly admired Wu Hui and his team's actions. Amidst the applause, Marui and her group, having completed their mission, lingered without hindrance and boarded the plane that was already waiting on the tarmac. Having handed over the mission to the Imperial Capital Special Forces team, Wu Hui and the others watched the plane glide into the sky, heading towards the capital. That old bastard is Noda, huh? He's really alert. At his age, he's still pretty fast. No wonder he's Japanese. It seems he never intended to care about the safety of his men. After seeing them off, Guo held his phone, watching a video of a man around 50 years old running rapidly, and said jokingly. Indeed, the person shown in the video on Guo's phone was Noda. I must say, Consultant Su's Skynet is really impressive. It actually managed to find Noda's trail among so many people. If I were to judge, who would have thought Noda was such a guy who's practically buried in the ground? Just as Guo was speaking, Noda's identity information was transmitted to Guowen's phone: name, Su Yonghong, gender, male, age 51, affiliation, president of Zhongdu Rongsheng Group. Tisk didn't expect him to be a president. Investigate this Rongsheng Group, see what they do, since Noda, the head of Japanese spies, was the president. Guowen, based on his years of experience, didn't believe that Zhongdu Rongsheng Group was completely without problems. After Noda got into the car, Guowen didn't continue looking. He glanced at Black Hand and, seeing that he had also left, didn't bother with it anymore. Team leader, do you have any information about the initial mech? Would you like us to send you a copy? Chapter 208, Revival directly leaps to Iron Man. Having agreed to serve as the leader of the Phoenix research team, Fuchsing was quickly added to a private information group for the team's administrators. Within the group, besides Suze as the leader, the other 9 deputy leaders were already in place. After a brief welcoming ceremony, Academician Han Sang-wen, responsible for daily maintenance and primarily handling logistics and technical coordination for each department, addressed Suzette. Because Fuchsing was a mysterious entity, they weren't sure if it possessed the technology for the initial mecha, hence their question. Hearing Han Sang-wen's inquiry, Suzette, while reviewing files on his computer, replied directly, "No need. I have my own arrangements. I'll send you a document later, you can begin your research accordingly." To Li Jianguo, Han Sang-wen, Sun Lijun, and the others, Suze's voice was still the familiar, albeit disguised, clear voice. How could Suze not possess their technology? Suze had never intended for them to conduct research on outdated technologies like the initial mecha. Suze would definitely arrange for them to research a humanoid all-weather combat mech, that, while also a mech, would be far superior in technology to the initial mech, a mech temporarily named Phoenix by Suze after the research team. Hearing Suze's words, Li Jianguo, Han Sang-wen, Sun Lijun, and the others, though not understanding Fuchsing's motives, relied on their previous experience. They knew Suze had a reason for saying this. Therefore, they would do as Suze instructed. After speaking, Suze closed the chat interface. You've all seen the information about the initial mech these past 2 days, right? I wonder what kind of research plan Fuchsing will arrange, since Suze was going to arrange a research and development plan for them. Their own original plans were definitely out of the question. Han Sang-wen asked curiously. Hearing Han Sang-wen's question, everyone shared their thoughts. Let me start. The main materials needed for the initial mech have already been purchased from New Future Materials Company. Since they are readily available and mass-produced, there aren't any major issues with the materials. However, we plan to conduct research based on the NK1 to develop the NK2, which boasts superior strength, toughness, and impact resistance. Academician Li Jianguo, hearing Han Sang-wen's words, was the first to express his opinion. Hearing Academician Li Jianguo's words, everyone nodded. His approach aligned with normal research methods. After Li Jianguo's opinion, Sun Lijun spoke up. I've studied the initial mech's piloting system and found that although it has some auxiliary piloting systems, the operation is still somewhat cumbersome. I plan to develop the piloting system towards greater intelligence and a more streamlined design, minimizing the space in the cockpit. This will allow for the carrying of more weapons and equipment, enhancing the initial mech's combat capabilities. Following Sun Lijun, academicians from other technical fields also shared their research directions. Their ideas were largely similar. They all planned to make some basic changes to the initial type mech, remaining within the overall framework of the initial type mech. In fact, these academicians could have been much bolder. However, their professional knowledge told them that further boldness would make successful development impossible, or at least impractical in the short term. Therefore, they had no choice but to stick to this approach. Even so, in the eyes of these accomplished academicians, this was already a significant step forward. This content alone was enough for them to carefully lead their teams in research and development for 2 or 3 years. Li Jianguo, Han Sang-wen, Sun Lijun, and others patiently discussed the future of the initial type mech. Soon after, Suze sent the pre-prepared plan, along with the technical details regarding the humanoid all-weather combat mech, that Li Jianguo, Han Sang-wen, Sun Lijun, and others needed to research, via internal email to them. The file was quite large. Even with the highest speed broadband, the massive folder still took considerable time to download. After Li Jianguo, Han Sang-wen, Sun Lijun, and the others finished downloading the documents in their respective fields and opened them to view the plans Suze had arranged for them. They initially didn't react much, their eyes merely scanning the contents of the documents with a calm yet slightly curious expression. However, when they saw the research goals and directions set by Suze in the documents, they couldn't help but widen their eyes in astonishment. Clearly, the contents of the documents had exceeded their expectations. This is impossible. This is too difficult. I was just thinking about reducing the pilot space, but I didn't expect Fuchsing to skip the cockpit altogether and achieve real-time brainwave control and AI assistance. This is too big a leap, and they even want the Mecha to be mobile, able to transform into a portable backpack at any time. Isn't this Iron Man? The materials are really too difficult to make. I was just considering increasing jumping power to improve agility, but Fuchsing is going to add flight capabilities. This is too big a leap, and this energy source, they've jumped straight to nuclear fusion. Not only does it need to be controlled nuclear fusion, but it also needs to be miniaturized so that it can be housed in a mecha the size of a human body. This is impossible in the short term, it's too ambitious. This level of difficulty, even if I had 10 years, I couldn't research it. Chapter 209. This plan is simply impossible to achieve. Fuchsing's idea is indeed excellent, but this time it's different from others. The difficulty is too high, seriously exceeding our current technological level. No, absolutely not. We don't complain about the technical difficulty, but rather its impracticality. The technologies that the initial generation mechas possess are considered epic-making, but compared to Fuchsing's plans, they're practically the foundation, starting from scratch, and expecting to complete the development in just 6 months to a year? That's impossible. We've weathered countless storms, but this level, forgive our limited experience, but we don't think we'll see any hope of success in our lifetime. While we know Fuchsing's idea is bold, and they can indeed achieve their goals step by step, this plan is beyond our reach by more than one era. I don't believe it can be successfully developed. We need to discuss this matter thoroughly with Fuchsing. Although the country is now wealthy and the funding is ample, we can't just recklessly waste time. Deputy Team Leader Han, we need to raise this issue together. After Li Jiangul, Hans Hengwen, Sun Lijun, and the other academicians reviewed the goals and research plans outlined by Suzette, their reactions varied. Some spoke, while others shook their heads, but their sentiments were all the same. They simply could not accept Suzette's plan. These men had endured countless hardships and faced immense difficulties in their efforts to help China break through the blockade. Back then, they believed that even a 1% chance of success was enough to motivate them to pursue those goals with all their might. But now, Suzette's plan, regardless of the technology or research direction, seemed utterly impossible for these top scientists and technologists in their respective fields to achieve. When the discussion subsided, they saw Fuchsing log back into his account and join the chat group, sharing their thoughts with him. Team Leader, I know your thoughts, but this goal is really too high. Team Leader, you know very well what stage our nuclear fusion research has reached. We've only just barely controlled nuclear fusion, but miniaturization, with current technology, is impossible, especially to this extent. This would absolutely overturn existing methods. Fuchsing, we know you've achieved your past goals, but isn't this goal a bit too ambitious? Could you be a little more conservative? Listening to the academicians sitting in their seats expressing their doubts and dissatisfaction, Susan naturally knew they weren't targeting him personally. They genuinely felt his plan was too difficult. To be honest, before obtaining the complete data and technology for the humanoid all-weather combat mech, Suzette wouldn't have set such a high goal. However, with the technology Suzette currently possesses, the goal these academicians considered impossible has been completely achieved. After the academicians' complaints subsided slightly, Suzette spoke again. I've heard your doubts, but I won't do anything to change the goals. As for any technical difficulties you may have, they're all in the materials I have given you. Just complete the research plan I've set out for you, ensuring quality and quantity. Without further ado, if you encounter any technical problems, you can contact me. I'll answer your questions when I have time. Meeting adjourned. After speaking sternly, Suzette ignored everyone's reactions and hung up the chat group. Seeing that Suzette was determined to follow his plan despite their collective opposition, without any intention of negotiation, infuriated them. No, I must report this to the organization and let them judge. I want to withdraw. This kind of group has no chance of succeeding. I'm not staying. Bringing Fuchsing here was a terrible decision. How could I have been so foolish as to recommend him? This is a waste of national research funds. They want us to look at the technical documents. Does his technical document contain the document he's talking about? Fuchsing is indeed renowned, but he's still a person. I don't believe Fuchsing can produce such groundbreaking technology. I'm telling you this, if Fuchsing can produce it, then from now on, I will obey his every command and do whatever he tells me to do. Compared to the angry academicians, Li Jianguo paid attention to what Fuchsing was saying. Fuchsing certainly wouldn't waste time talking nonsense. Since Fuchsing wanted them to look at the technical documents, he might as well take a look. There was still some time. Li Jianguo opened the folder named LT1, opened Sequence 1, and began to read. What he saw immediately immersed him in this vast ocean of knowledge. Immersed in his studies, Li Jianguo completely lost track of time. It wasn't until the academician started making arrangements to leave that the noise roused him from his reverie. This completely changed Li Jianguo's attitude towards the plan Fuchsing had just formulated. With this information, Fuchsing's goals were entirely achievable. Wait a minute, all of you, look at the technical documents in your folders, Li Jianguo called out to the three hot-tempered academicians. Hearing this, the three academicians, who were about to discuss the theory, stopped and looked at Li Jianguo, saying, "Old Li, have you been brainwashed by Fuchsing? Take a look at the documents, we'll talk after you've read them." Li Jianguo knew his colleagues' personalities well enough. He didn't argue, simply stating calmly. Hearing Li Jianguo's attitude, the three exchanged glances and decided to take a look. They could manage to squeeze in a little time. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210. No, it's completely within reach. We all know Fuchsing is powerful, but can it be that all of Fuchsing's proposed plans in the 8 major technical fields have corresponding technical data to support them? The speaker was academician Lu Xiangqiu, responsible for developing the weapons and ammunition to equip the Mechas. Lu Xiangqiu was a leading figure of the 3rd generation in Xia Kingdom, engaged in research on ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, rockets, and other highly destructive weapons. His primary responsibility was to upgrade existing weapons and equipment through technological means so that they could be mounted on mechas and continue to function normally. However, according to Su Ze's plan, he was required to abandon all previous ideas and develop a substance called Kyang, which Su Ze had proposed but had not yet manufactured. It was said that based on this Kyang substance, more powerful and more sophisticated small weapons and equipment could be developed, and even legendary sci-fi weapons such as laser cannons, laser swords, and electromagnetic pulse cannons could be researched. In other words, Su Ze's idea was that even if a highly destructive weapon like a ballistic missile were miniaturized to the size of a glass, its explosive power would not be weaker than, and might even be stronger. It's well known that the amount of explosive material is a crucial factor in explosive power. How much explosive material can a glass hold? How could it possibly compare to a ballistic missile? Not to mention, Su Ze's idea was based on a clanging substance that Su Ze had never heard of before. Lu Xiangqiu was already a leading figure in the development of large-scale destructive thermal weapons, yet he had never even heard of this clanging substance. A substance he had never heard of meant that there was no relevant technical data in the world. How could Su Ze possibly start researching it based on just a few words? Lu Xiangqiu wasn't afraid of being told what to do, but he was afraid of someone making an unrealistic, impulsive decision and sending him to do it, only to have his efforts wasted and the country suffer huge losses. This was precisely the reason for Lu Xiangqiu's anger. As Lu Xiangqiu spoke, his dissatisfaction was completely undisguised. Back at his computer, Lu Xiangqiu closed the plan Su Ze had given him and reopened the next technical document. Finding the file introducing the Kyang information, Lu Xiangqiu began to read. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Xiangqiu, whose face had initially shown indignation, gradually underwent a visible change. His expression shifted from indignation to stunned silence, then to surprise, disbelief, and finally, meticulous seriousness. This rich tapestry of facial expressions captured the core of a person's complex inner turmoil, revealing his true inner state to everyone. This change in Lu Xiangqiu naturally didn't escape the notice of Li Jianguo and the others. Li Jianguo showed no surprise, his expression remaining calm, clearly indicating that this was indeed within his expectations. However, the other academicians who hadn't yet seen the technical documents noticed Lu Xiangqiu's changing expressions and the stark contrast between his current and past expressions. Knowing Lu Xiangqiu's personality and witnessing this dramatic change, the academicians who had initially planned to seek help from their organization immediately realized something was amiss. They returned to their seats and began reviewing the documents on their computers. Almost simultaneously, the academicians present, reviewing the materials provided by Suzette, gasped in astonishment. These seasoned, experienced academicians, who had worked on countless major national projects, seemed to be transported back to their early days, absorbing knowledge and expertise. After Lu Xiangqiu finished reading the detailed introduction to the Kaiyang material, although he hadn't yet seen the key technological processes and precautions, the simple introduction and the representative data parameters of the Kaiyang material alone gave him a shocking answer. If, as Suzette requested, new weapons and equipment to be mounted on mechas were developed based on the Kaiyang material, then the effects set in Suzette's plan could be fully achieved. This completely overturned Lu Xiangqiu's previous belief that it was impossible. Crucially, while overturning this idea, Lu Xiangqiu also completely agreed with the technical data on the Kaiyang material presented by Suzette, and was utterly convinced. At this moment, Lu Xiangqiu felt a deep respect and admiration for Suzette. Under what circumstances did Suzette discover Kaiyang, a substance that had never been discovered by anyone before? Moreover, judging from the technical data, Suzette's research on Kaiyang had reached a certain level. If given some time to conduct research and receive answers to the difficulties from Suzette, Lu Xiangqiu felt he could easily develop it using Suzette's technical data. Although Suzette had given him 9 months, Lu Xiangqiu was already planning to develop it in 6 months, or even earlier. After all, in Lu Xiangqiu's view, Suzette had already achieved this level. What he needed to do now was very little, simply apply theoretical knowledge to practice. If he couldn't even accomplish this quickly, it would be a real failure. And it wasn't just Lu Xiangqiu who felt this way, others, including Sun Lijun, shared the same thought. After reviewing the accompanying materials from Suzette, their initial belief that Suzette's plan was completely unrealistic vanished. Their attitude underwent a complete 180-degree turn. Originally, they naturally hoped Suzette's plan would succeed, as it would be a devastating weapon for Xia Kingdom, completely overwhelming its enemies. However, being familiar with the current technological landscape, they also understood how difficult it was to achieve. Now, Suzette had provided them with ample technical data as support, making what was once unattainable within reach, which filled these academicians with excitement. They wanted this work of art to be born from their hands as soon as possible. Chapter 211 Fuxing was truly a great man. Academicians Li Jianguo and Han Hangwen were also extremely relieved. They were relieved that they had appointed Fuxing as the leader of their Phoenix research group. If it had been someone else, then by the time they had thoroughly studied the initial type mech technology they purchased from Suzette and began large-scale operations, Fuxing's listed technologies would have rendered the initial type mech obsolete. At that point, their years of work would have been in vain. While feeling excited, a deep sense of guilt and remorse rose in the hearts of Sun Lijun, Lu Xiangqiu, and others. They knew without a doubt that this technology had cost Suzette endless effort and countless hours of hard work. Yet, without understanding the situation, they had wantonly slandered and insulted Suzette. Putting themselves in Suzette's shoes, how heartbroken and distressed they would be upon seeing their actions. At this moment, Lu Xiangqiu and the others exchanged glances, seeing something in each other's eyes. 1,000 words could not express the shame in their hearts. Then, they simultaneously bowed to the void, whether Suzette saw it or not, expressing their apology to him. This bow was their respect for a Fuxing, a man they had never met, who had always lived in seclusion behind the scenes and had never cared much for fame or fortune. Compared to Fuxing, they already enjoyed the respect of the entire nation, which was already fortunate enough. After straightening up, Li Jianguo, Han Hangwen, Sun Lijun, and the others didn't linger, grabbing their laptops and rushing to their respective research areas. At this moment, their only thought was to work overtime, overcome all difficulties, and lead their research teams to successfully complete the task Suzette had entrusted to them. Although Suzette didn't see Li Jianguo and the others' actions, he saw through the camera that they were protecting their laptops as if they were the most important thing in the world. Even in the completely sealed environment of the research base, their laptops were still tightly held to their chests, never leaving their sides. Seeing this, Suze knew that Li Jianguo and the others would definitely do as he asked. Seeing this, Suze didn't say much more. He sent the materials to Li Jianguo and the others, and naturally, Suze needed to study them diligently. Otherwise, if they encountered difficulties and he didn't solve them in time, it would delay the research and development progress. Fifei, what's wrong? Are you still thinking about Suze's matter? Bingbing asked, looking at Gao Luofei's pensive face. Hearing Bingbing's question, Gao Luofei nodded and said, I really haven't heard of or seen the term Thousand Talents program before, but I just can't remember where. Gao Luofei was certain that she had seen these terms somewhere, but no matter how hard she racked her brains, she couldn't recall where. Fifei, think slowly, don't rush. Maybe these memories will pop into your mind on their own someday, that's all I can do. Hearing Bingbing's comforting words, Gao Luofei nodded. This is something that can't be forced. If you really can't figure it out, then no matter what you do, it won't be easy to come up with. Alright, Fifei, don't forget what our main task is right now. Our main objective is to find Suze's hidden stash of money. Think about those little bits of money. Cheer up, Bingbing said, then stretched out her fair, snow-white, slender, and straight hands. Lifted Gao Luofei's head, and pinched Gao Luofei's chubby cheeks. Then she rubbed them roughly. Bingbing's actions affected Gao Luofei's mood, making her feel much better. She decided to ignore this troublesome matter for now. Damn, I'm so envious, so cute. Thanks to the Hidden Stash program team, otherwise we wouldn't have seen this side of the goddess. Is this still the same Ice Queen? If love could melt everything. Yi Yinglan, after all, is different from experts Zhelan and Sun Li. In terms of finding hidden stashes of money, her skills are definitely not as good as theirs. However, Yi Yinglan also had her own advantages. She had some say in Suze's inventions that Zhelan and Sun Li were unsure about. Fifei, please take me to Suze's studio. She would specialize in whatever she was good at? Which one? Gao Luofei nodded upon hearing Yi Yinglan's words and then asked her. Previously, Suze's studio would only be the research studio on the 3rd floor. But now, after yesterday's events, they discovered a studio in the basement. Yi Yinglan had watched the live stream and had some understanding of what Gao Luofei was talking about. She had quickly scanned the 3rd floor studio through the live stream, and while she was very interested in its contents, it wasn't as large as the basement. After all, the basement contained the legendary Candle Dragon. It's no exaggeration to say that even the initial mechas weren't as popular as the Candle Dragon. After all, the abilities displayed by Candle Dragon were simply too cool, with countless functions and applications. In contrast, the initial mech, due to its special functions and size, didn't actually have as many opportunities to be used in practice. Let's go to the basement. Gao Luofei had only briefly looked at the basement yesterday and hadn't had time to explore it further. Since Yi Yinglan was also going, they might as well go together and see what unexpected things might be hidden in this mysterious basement. Go to the basement? Great. I'm also curious about what else is in there. I have a feeling there are many hidden things in the basement. There's bound to be a lot to discover. The basement, who knows what surprises Suze might hide in there. Chapter 212. What is the magic of laptops? Teacher, let me take your notebook. As Lu Xiangqiu carried the technical documents that would drive countless weapons research experts mad, out of the conference room and headed towards the weapons research area he was in charge of, a girl in a white lab coat, her graceful figure barely concealed, quickly stepped forward to take the notebook from Lu Xiangqiu's hands. The girl had crescent-shaped eyes, willow leaf eyebrows, rosy cheeks, and a head of short, dashing hair, looking exceptionally spirited. This girl was none other than Dong Jiatong, Lu Xiangqiu's most prized student, who had followed Lu Xiangqiu in missile research for her bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. Initially, Lu Xiangqiu wasn't very optimistic about Dong Jiatong. Weapons research was arduous and exhausting, and even after many years, a major breakthrough might not be achieved. Add to that the harsh environment, and many boys couldn't withstand it, let alone a girl like Dong Jiatong, whose appearance could rival that of a celebrity. Moreover, Lu Xiangqiu had heard that Dong Jiatong came from a very wealthy family. Would she rather live a comfortable life as a pampered young lady? Why bother with the hardship of weapons research? However, when Lu Xiangqiu saw Dong Jiatong brave the filth and danger to search in the mud to find out why her small artillery shells had misfired, coupled with Dong Jiatong's consistently outstanding performance, Lu Xiangqiu took a liking to her and made an exception to accept her as his student. Dong Jiatong lived up to his expectations, surpassing her seniors who had been researching for 6 or 7 years at a young age. This made Lu Xiangqiu value her even more, and this time, when he heard he could lead a team to participate in the research of the initial Mecha, the first person Lu Xiangqiu took was Dong Jiatong. Normally, Lu Xiangqiu would hand over the notebook to Dong Jiatong for this action. But this time, instead of giving it to her, he kept it tightly hidden in his pocket. It wasn't that Lu Xiangqiu didn't trust Dong Jiatong, but rather that he couldn't bear to let such precious information stray too far from him. Seeing her teacher's behavior, and looking at Lu Xiangqiu's barely suppressed smile and excited eyes, Dong Jiatong wondered curiously. What's wrong with the teacher? He's not usually like this. Why is he so excited? It seems even more exciting than when we obtained the information about the initial Mecha. This meeting has been going on for so long. What exactly happened? Upon observation, Dong Jiatong discovered that it wasn't just academician Lu Xiangqiu who was like this. Others such as Li Jianguo and Han Sehengwen were also behaving similarly. The most exaggerated was academician Sun Lijun, who seemed to have suddenly become 30 years younger, actually running away from her with his laptop. Is this really the same gentle and refined academician, a paragon of virtue? He's so different from before. Did you know, after academician Lu came back, he locked himself in his office and hasn't come out yet, even though it's dinner time? You guys too, our academician Li is the same. We haven't seen him either. Me too. I thought only academician Han was like this. I didn't expect you guys to be like this too. Me too. Soon, it was lunchtime at the research base. When the researchers, who hadn't yet been assigned research tasks and were tidying up their research areas, came to the restaurant. They discussed among themselves and found that the behavior of the academicians today was quite abnormal. Because of the meeting this morning, they were all surprisingly in unison, doing something in their offices. Jiatong, your academician Lu's prized student, do you know what's wrong with academician Lu? When the weapons team researcher saw Dong Jiatong carrying a tray, he asked curiously. Faced with everyone's questions, Dong Jiatong gently shook her head. I don't know. Academician Lu didn't say much after the meeting. However, academician Lu's behavior after the meeting was exactly the same as the other academicians. They clung to their laptops, acting very excited and agitated. Later, everyone heard similar or identical words from others. It seemed that all the strange occurrences were due to the laptops that the academicians treasured. Everyone became very interested in the contents of the laptops. Is this how it was opened yesterday? Gao Luofei felt around at the spot where Suze had opened the basement passage yesterday. Soon, after pressing the button, the familiar mechanical sound in the familiar passage opened. After the passage was fully opened, the stairs leading down were also ready. Gao Luofei led the way, followed by Bingbing and Yi Yinglan. After entering the basement, although they had already watched the videos yesterday, the three of them still lingered for a while before passing through the landscape created by the candle dragon and entering the interior of the basement. The living room was almost completely open, with no obstructions. The three of them didn't linger and instead opened a mahogany door next to the sofa. The interior was immediately apparent. The basement, being a smaller space compared to the studio on the third floor, was still quite spacious. Shelves, cabinets, and other storage items lined the walls, both above and below ground, crammed full. The items varied in size and material. Despite the abundance, they were arranged neatly, preventing a cluttered or unpleasant atmosphere. It seems like there's only one room in the basement. Suze's things must all be stored here, Yi Yinglan remarked after observing the basement. With so much stuff, and Suze hiding it so well, not even telling the goddess about the basement's existence, these things are definitely not ordinary. I wonder if it's because of the candle dragon incident, but I find my expectations for this basement have increased. Could there be something on par with Candle Dragon? Chapter 213 Reporting a Spy. 2 million reward. Have you seen the news? The government has announced that Xiulin is a strategic weapon on par with nuclear bombs. Any suspicious espionage activity involving an unusual desire to explore, learn about, or inquire about Xiulin technology can be reported to the relevant government departments. Up to 2 million, wow. Other espionage activities are capped at 500,000. Xiulin truly lives up to its name. Its importance is unparalleled. I'm a student at a key military academy, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that this is serious. They've all signed confidentiality agreements. I can't say more, But we've already started selecting researchers to be responsible for developing Zhulan technology and its applications. I know those selected won't see the outside world for 3 years. Dude, you said you signed a confidentiality agreement, and you still dare to talk? Aren't you just walking into a trap? I smell money in my mouth. Don't try to take it from me, damn it, you bastards. The guy who said he was a student's account got banned? He can't access it. Everyone watch your mouth, don't be like that guy. Looks like his future isn't looking good. Sigh, what a waste of his parents' efforts, producing such a good for nothing. Although registering Souza as a young scientist today was fraught with difficulties and not entirely smooth, now that they were going to find Souza's secret stash of money, which had been exciting watching the live stream, Yi Yinglan was also excited to be doing it herself. She began searching for Souza's hidden money in the basement. Yi Yinglan started by looking through the cabinet next to her, her eyes sweeping over each item on the shelf, picking them up and playing with them for a while before putting them down. Repeating this, Yi Yinglan was surprised to find that most of these items seemed to be related to the 5G technology she was focusing on researching, but they seemed to be more complex, with a broader scope than 5G technology. Could it be that Souza was researching mobile communication technology? Mobile communication technology was something she, Yi Yinglan, was very good at? Let's see how Souza, a research genius who can even develop mechas, does with mobile communication technology. I'm still pretty good at it. Just as Yi Yinglan was searching the shelves for mobile communication technology, her phone suddenly rang. Seeing it was her friend calling, she answered without thinking much. Nana, I'm busy right now. Is it urgent? If not, we can talk tonight. Hearing Yi Yinglan's words, the person named Nana said, Yinglan, if you're busy, we can talk tonight. I found the information you wanted, I'll send it to you. After hanging up, she received a file from Nana via WhatsApp shortly after. The file was 50 megabytes, not large, and downloaded in less than a second. At this point, Yi Yinglan realized something was wrong. She was clearly in the basement. Why was there a signal there to receive a call? With current communication technology, even in some high-rise buildings, and even in homes on the ground floor, mobile communication signals are sometimes weak and intermittent. But they were in a basement, a closed space. How could the signal be so strong, even at full strength? Not only could they make calls, but the download speed was also incredibly fast, even faster than on the surface. All of this made Yi Yinglan, a researcher in mobile communication technology, realize something was wrong. Yinglan, what's wrong? Gao Luofei asked, noticing the unusual expression on Yi Yinglan's face. Did you notice? The signal in the basement is so good, Yi Yinglan said to Gao Luofei and Bingbing after hearing Gao Luofei's question. Hearing what Yi Yinglan said, the two women finally realized. Yes, why was the signal in the basement so good, and why could they even broadcast live? Before, no one had focused on this and hadn't noticed anything strange, but now, after Yi Yinglan's prompting, the two women finally noticed the anomaly. Could it be that Souza installed a mobile communication base station in the basement? Bingbing said. It shouldn't be. Mobile communication base stations are very large. If they were installed here, they would definitely be detectable. But right now, apart from some items related to mobile communication, we haven't seen anything related to mobile communication base stations. Most importantly, setting up a mobile communication base station privately without permission is illegal, and it's currently prohibited in our country. Hearing that it involved illegality, Gao Luofei became a little nervous. Fifei, don't be nervous. Don't you know what kind of person Souza is? Even if Souza installed a mobile communication base station where we can't see it, he would definitely have reported it to the relevant departments beforehand. Besides, nothing's been decided yet, right? Bingbing said to Gao Luofei. Something incredible must have happened, so fast? Is Professor Su about to create another masterpiece? 666, as expected of Professor Su, he breaks the law right away. What's illegal? Who is Professor Su? Even if there's no evidence that he installed a base station, he would have definitely informed the relevant departments beforehand. I happen to have a friend who works in this field. I'll ask him if such a base station exists. After saying that, Yi Yinglan found her friend's phone number on her phone. Soon, she pressed the dial button and made the call. Li Gang, are you at work? It's like this. Could you check if villain number 18 in Jinlin community has been registered to install a mobile communication base station? Okay, check it for me. Let me know if you find out. Not long after, Yi Yinglan's phone rang again. No, There's no record of anyone registering this place, and I see no difference in the signal coverage map. Why are you suddenly asking about this? Chapter 214 The horror of revival lies in its inducement. Nana assumed Yi Yinglan had asked her to investigate because it was related to the signal strength in the area. So she checked, but found the signal strength in the area Yi Yinglan mentioned was the same as in other areas. If that was the case, why would Yi Yinglan ask such a question? Yi Yinglan, hearing Nana's words, was also puzzled. If the signal wasn't improving, why did her phone have a signal in the basement? It just didn't make sense. Nana, if the signal isn't improving, why is my phone still at full strength in the basement, and the internet speed is faster than elsewhere? Impossible. Is that even possible? Nana said incredulously. She had never heard of such a thing before. Alright, I only asked you that because I found it unbelievable. Since I can't find the answer from you, I'll look for it myself. Seeing Yi Yinglan about to hang up, Nana quickly said, Yinglan, if you find the answer, remember to tell me. Okay, I know. After saying that, Yi Yinglan hung up the phone and put it back in her pocket. Through this incident, Yi Yinglan could confirm that there was definitely a problem with the signal in this basement. General Gao, this hard drive contains information about Candle Dragon and the autopilot system. The plane quickly arrived in the capital after following its flight path. After arriving at the military office base in a special car, Marui handed the hard drive, which had been escorted all the way, to Gao Yuanshan, who was waiting in his office. After handing over the hard drive, Marui thought of the Candle Dragon that Gao Luofei had given her before her departure, and said to Gao Yuanshan, General Gao, this is the Candle Dragon that Gao Luofei gave me before my departure. Please give this to you as well. Although Marui also cherished the Candle Dragon, she knew her limits. Having technical data and having a physical product to conduct research together is not something that can be done in a short time. Thank you. After the research is completed, I will arrange for someone to return it to you intact, Gao Yuanshan said to Marui with a smile. After speaking, the military research expert who had been waiting for a long time entered at Gao Yuanshan's invitation. After entering, he took the hard drive and Candle Dragon away. The matter was settled, and Marui did not stay any longer, taking her leave. Meanwhile, at the research base of the Phoenix Research Group, the researchers finished lunch and were still discussing the academician situation. Hey, our original research plan was going well, but academician Lu suddenly stopped it. Could it be because of this morning's meeting? Probably. We don't know when we'll start research anymore. We're getting impatient, just thinking that Suzette, with no background and not much influence, actually developed a Mecha. How can we lose to him? We must build upon his work and make it even more perfect. Ding ding ding. Suddenly, almost simultaneously, their communicators beeped throughout the research base. The academician wants us to gather. Stop chatting, let's go. Bye-bye, we're gathering too. Looks like the academician came out of his office. He's probably going to assign us research tasks. Finally, we can get to work and do research. Don't be late. Instantly, with the sound of the notifications, the researchers who had been gathered in small groups scattered like birds, rushing towards their respective research areas. Although the gathering was rushed, none of the researchers complained. After all, this would not only resolve their previous doubts, but also allow them to officially begin their research. When the researchers from the weapons division arrived at a meeting room, they saw Lu Xiangqiu already seated at the head of the table, looking at his laptop with a very serious expression. Beside him, Dong Jiatong was adjusting the projector. The oppressive aura emanating from Lu Xiangqiu silenced the researchers, completely erasing their previous brashness. They obediently took their laptops and sat upright in their chairs. Professor Lu, everyone's here, Dong Jiatong said softly to Lu Xiangqiu after scanning the room and confirming that all 12 researchers were present. She then sat down in the empty chair next to him. After Dong Jiatong sat down, Lu Xiangqiu coughed twice, then pulled up a document titled Weapons Division Research Plan and addressed his researchers. There are two things. First, I believe you've already heard that the leader of our research group is Fuxing. Some of you may know who Fuxing is, and some may not have known before, but you've probably heard some information about Fuxing from others. Today, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Fuxing's background to you. Fuxing's age, gender, and educational background are unknown. What their first technological invention was is unknown, but you should have heard of several well-known technologies: the Xiangxing aerospace engine, high-precision positioning satellites, fixed-type controlled nuclear fusion technology, the new Type 102 tactical tank, and so on. There are too many to list. The most terrifying thing about Fuchsing is its ability to induce and stimulate people's creativity and potential. Take my own experience as an example. You should have heard of the multi-warhead, multi-target, irregular tracking and locking intercontinental ballistic missile that I developed. Initially, my research focused on carrying multiple warheads on a single intercontinental ballistic missile. This way, even if one warhead was intercepted, the others could still destroy the pre-locked target. At the time, I considered this an extremely difficult technology to master, given that it involved various fields such as small-scale missiles and navigation. Chapter 215. Then I can equip it with tactical missiles, right? Academician Lu's initial plan was actually this simple? Too simplistic. Simple? You think it's simple now, but that was 9 years ago, before any technological breakthroughs. If this technology had been mastered, its deterrent power against foreign countries would have been considerable. If it's really as Academician Lu says, then Fuchsing is terrifying. Academician Lu's original goals are so different from the final product. Not only can it lock onto 10 targets at once, but its range can cover 80% of the globe. Furthermore, the warhead's automatic flight trajectory is completely unpredictable. Currently, no one or country can intercept it 100%. The only option is dense missile bombardment. Hearing Lu Zhangqiu's words, the crowd whispered amongst themselves. They hadn't expected that Academician Lu Zhangqiu's masterpiece's initial plan was just this simple. You all know about the subsequent success, right? All those added features were added at Fuchsing's request. When I first heard Fuchsing's plan, I thought it was impossible, it was insane, but later, when Fuchsing presented its technologies and detailed development plans, I realized how narrow-minded I had been, and after this technology was successfully developed, I became famous overnight, which led to my current position. In fact, what Lu Zhangqiu described was just the tip of the iceberg for Fuchsing. Fuchsing develops many products, but it has also achieved countless breakthroughs in new technologies by disseminating advanced knowledge. After Lu Zhangqiu's introduction, the people present finally understood just how capable their team leader was. With such a person as the leader of the Phoenix Research Group, they had high expectations for their future research careers. Since Fuchsing was able to achieve this 9 years ago, now that they have the initial Mecha, what kind of design will Fuchsing be able to create for it? After all, such a powerful figure would surely be developing an even more powerful mech based on the initial mech. The second thing is our research and development mission. Amidst everyone's anticipation, Lu Zhangqiu addressed the second matter, their research and development mission. However, he didn't continue immediately, instead creating suspense before addressing the researchers present. I've already told you about Fuchsing. This morning, Fuchsing arranged our subsequent research plan and direction. I already told you about our original plan. Guess what Fuchsing's requirements are for us this time? Everyone, please speak up and share your thoughts. After saying this, Lu Zhangqiu leaned back in his chair, awaiting everyone's response. The atmosphere in the conference room fell into a brief silence as Lu Zhangqiu finished speaking. Each of them was internally contemplating how they would arrange future research plans if they were in Fuchsing's shoes. Teacher, let me go first. After careful consideration, Dong Jiatong raised her hand and said to Lu Zhangqiu. After receiving Lu Zhangqiu's nod, Dong Jiatong stood up, her red lips slightly moistened, and slowly spoke. As Professor Lu just mentioned, Team Leader Fuchsing's ideas are very bold. So, I'll venture to guess from Team Leader Fuchsing's perspective that he must have planned our research project. Professor Lu's original plan was to modify rocket launchers and various machine guns, mounting them on the initial mech frame to give the mech powerful destructive capabilities. If I were Team Leader Fuchsing, we would be in charge of the mech's weaponry, and I would mount large-scale, highly lethal weapons. For example, instead of machine guns, rocket launchers, swords, and axes, we could replace them with the tactical missiles currently used by the Xia Kingdom's military. If we sacrifice some destructive power to achieve miniaturization, then we could mount them on the mech, thus greatly increasing its destructive power. Alternatively, we could make the mech slightly larger, large enough to accommodate the latest tactical missiles, thus preserving their destructive power, or, we could modify the missiles. The initial mech lacks flight capability, right? We could design one that allows it to use the propulsion of tactical missiles for long-range flight and support. One mech equipped with a tactical missile becomes a mobile missile launcher. During combat, it can launch missiles in any harsh terrain, a bold move compared to previously only carrying rockets, machine guns, swords, and axes. The researchers in the conference room nodded in agreement with Dong Jiatong's words. If Fuxing's idea was bold, wasn't Dong Jiatong's idea bold too? Originally, their plan was to only have weapons with the power of rocket launchers. Now, they change it to missiles. Tactical missiles. Those are already powerful weapons. Miniaturizing missiles to this extent has reached a technological bottleneck. Whether it's the existing technology or the material manufacturing level that limits the miniaturization process, further reduction is extremely difficult. Isn't that bold? Seeing that everyone agreed with her idea, Dong Jiatong turned her gaze to Lu Xiangqiu. Since so many people agreed, she figured her idea would surely satisfy her teacher. However, Dong Jiatong was destined to be disappointed. After speaking, she didn't see any agreement on Lu Xiangqiu's face. Instead, he frowned. Knowing Lu Xiangqiu as she did, Dong Jiatong knew this expression meant that what she said differed greatly from the answer Lu Xiangqiu already knew. Chapter 216 They're actually going to develop laser and electromagnetic weapons. Jiatong, your idea is good, but if we equip it with current ballistic missiles, even with further miniaturization, it will still make the mecha bulky and inflexible, which is unsuitable. That's a bit too far off, still a bit conservative. Jiatong, think about it again before your answer. Everyone, don't limit yourselves to the weapon technologies we can touch and see right now. Let's broaden our thinking. It needs to be flexible, maintain its power, be easy to install and miniaturize, and have strong sustained combat capability. What about the others? Is anyone willing to share their opinions? While Dong Jiatong sat in her seat, pondering Lu Xiangqiu's words, the others in the conference room looked at each other, chatting privately, but no one stood up to speak. Isn't this bold enough? It needs to be flexible, powerful, easy to deploy, miniaturized, and have strong sustained combat capability. Aren't these requirements contradictory? This is the familiar client style. They're being too demanding. Those of us sitting here are among the best of the best. While our intelligence might not be exceptional, it's not bad either. Those laser-type weapons in movies seem to fit the requirements, and I remember those miniature missiles Iron Man fired. But are we sure we can develop such weapons? Since it's just a movie, how could it possibly exist in reality? In my opinion, it's impossible to develop such weapons in 30 to 50 years without discovering new materials or achieving a groundbreaking technological breakthrough. Lu Xiangqiu scanned the people in the conference room. When his gaze fell on them, the researchers who had been discussing amongst themselves lowered their voices. Isn't this bold enough? Tactical missiles aren't even an option. Are we talking about ballistic missiles or intercontinental ballistic missiles? Dong Jiatong thought she had already thought bold enough. How could it not be? Impossible. Putting ballistic missiles and intercontinental ballistic missiles on a mecha? It makes no sense. It'll just make the mecha look cumbersome and bulky. If not, then what could it be? Could it be that the weapons carried by the mecha are different in nature? They need to be miniaturized yet maintain sufficient power. That's impossible with current technology. However, although it's impossible, none of the weapons in the current arsenal can meet the teacher's requirement. In that case, it can only be a new type of weapon. After a mental struggle, Dong Jiatong raised her hand again and stood up after receiving Lu Xiangqiu's nod. This time, compared to the confidence she had shown when she stood up last time, Dong Jiatong's expression was hesitant. My idea is just a preliminary concept. It might not be mature enough, or it might be wrong. I hope Teacher Lu and my colleagues won't mind. After speaking, Dong Jiatong slowly began to express her somewhat immature thoughts. I've analyzed Professor Lu's words. The characteristics of the weapon he described seem contradictory to us. However, I think if even we find them contradictory, Professor Lu must be aware of them. But from the meaning behind Professor Lu's words, everyone can sense that he's not joking. Therefore, I mentally reviewed all the weapons and equipment I know, and found that none of the weapons and equipment we've encountered so far meet this requirement. In that case, it must be a completely new weapon system, since it needs to be powerful, flexible, and sustainable. After much thought, I think combining laser weapons from well-known science fiction movies like Iron Man and Star Wars with Iron Man's combat weapons would perfectly match the characteristics Professor Lu described. Electronic pulse cannons can fire as long as there's energy, and everyone has seen the power in the movies. Laser swords and other laser weapons are also examples. After expressing her inner thoughts, Dong Jiatong sat down. Dong Jiatong's words immediately enlivened the meeting room. The researchers discussed animatedly, their faces showing a complex mix of doubt, surprise, confusion, and disbelief. Iron Man, Star Wars? Thinking about it, it seems like Lima's weapon does fit the requirements: lightweight, sustainable, and powerful. It does fit, but they're not really asking us to research that stuff, are they? You're not kidding, are you? That kind of technology only exists in movies. You don't think we can develop it in a short time, do you? After sitting down, Dong Jiatong looked at Lu Xiangqiu. This time, unlike before, Dong Jiatong saw admiration in Lu Xiangqiu's eyes. Did Professor Lu's expression mean she was right? Now it was Dong Jiatong's turn to be somewhat incredulous. Her idea was truly just a wild fantasy. After speaking, Dong Jiatong felt that neither electronic pulse cannons nor laser weapons were feasible at all. Regarding laser swords, at present, humanity has not discovered a device capable of capturing a plasma beam, commonly known as plasma, and controlling it within a small area. Naturally, realizing a weapon like a laser sword is impossible. However, judging from Professor Lu's expression, their future research goals seem to truly be something she considers impossible. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, Lu Xiangqiu waited until the discussion subsided slightly before speaking. I know everyone has many points of contention regarding what Dong Jiatong said, which I understand. After all, including myself this morning, we all thought it was impossible. Wait a minute. The researchers listening to Lu Xiangqiu's speech quickly grasped the meaning behind her words. This morning, Academician Lu also thought it was impossible, which means that after this morning's meeting, Academician Lu believes that what Dong Jiatong said is indeed achievable. My goodness, are we actually going to develop laser and electromagnetic weapons? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217. The initial mech will never be developed. People's reaction times vary. In the conference room, some people immediately understood the deeper meaning in Academician Lu Xiangqiu's words, while others didn't. However, this didn't matter much, because Lu Xiangqiu had already stated it himself. Now I'll announce our future research direction and division of labor details. With that, Lu Xiangqiu opened the plan he had compiled in his office after returning from the conference room, based on the schedule Suzer had given them. On the screen, everyone immediately saw a line of striking text: Research and Development Plan and Division of Labor for Electromagnetic Weapons and Laser Weapons. Now everyone understood that what they had previously thought were fantasies were real, things they were actually going to do. It's for real. This is going to be busy. Everything has to start from scratch. Yes, we've made some progress with electromagnetic weapons, but lasers are a different story. Wan Chengfang, you will be in charge of electromagnetic weapons. Tuang Jiatuang, you will be in charge of laser weapons. After Academician Lu Xiangqiu's explanation, the division of labor and tasks were clearly defined. Upon learning that they were to develop electromagnetic and laser weapons from scratch, within 6 months to 9 months at the latest, everyone felt immense pressure, almost unable to breathe. Don't look so gloomy, Lu Xiangqiu said. Even if I highly value you, you wouldn't give me results for at least 30 to 50 years if I asked you to do the research yourself. Fuchsing has already compiled all the relevant technical data. Your job is simply to turn the theory into reality based on Fuchsing's data. Hearing Lu Xiangqiu's words, everyone, including Dong Jiatong, breathed a deep sigh of relief. If that was the case, then it was still achievable. However, a question immediately occurred to them: was Fuchsing even human? They had actually produced feasible technical data for electromagnetic and laser weapons. This was a human, a monster. Only their weapons division was like this. Did Fuchsing provide technical data for other divisions like theirs? This thought left everyone stunned and numb. Are you sure the Fuchsing team leader isn't an alien? This is ridiculous. What's so great about Suzel? Look at Fuchsing, that's a real genius. This isn't even a genius. I feel like the Fuchsing team leader is a god. You two come to my office later, I'll give you the technical data that needs to be developed. Alright, that's the end of the meeting. Just follow the personnel assignments and plan I gave you, working overtime to complete the goals. I know time is tight and the task is heavy, but I believe that after this mission, you will gain unexpected rewards. Even if Lu Xiangqiu hadn't said it aloud, everyone understood. After all, from this year onwards, they would be among the world's few researchers who mastered and were familiar with electromagnetic and laser weapons. If this matter were exposed, promotions, raises, and salary increases would be a piece of cake. Other countries would likely extend olive branches, offering very generous conditions to recruit them. And with this resume, they could step onto a larger platform. After saying this, apart from Wang Chengfeng and Dong Jiatong following academician Lu Xiangqiu to his office, the others were still processing the shocking news. By the time they returned to their seats, the academicians in each special zone had finished their meetings. Before long, the entire research base of the Phoenix Research Group was filled with discussions about what had just happened. I finally understand what "there are always people more capable than you" really means. Suze is just an ordinary person compared to Team Leader Fusion. Team Leader Fusion, you're a god. Did you know that our power research group has changed its direction? We're now researching miniaturized controlled nuclear fusion, the kind Iron Man researched. Our materials have changed too. They say they're researching a fluid material that not only outperforms NK1 in all aspects, but also has the ability to deform, autopilot assistance. That's a joke. Did you know that future mech pilots will only need brainwaves for real-time control, and they'll even have artificial intelligence, like Jarvis? After they pieced together all the information they had gathered, this mech was completely different from the initial one. They could also imagine what a mech equipped with so many advanced technologies would look like. This was a mech with performance even superior to Iron Man's suit. And in their hearts, because of the Phoenix team's name, they called it the Phoenix. The commotion was brief. The thought that their research was on such a high-performance Phoenix immediately spurred everyone back to their workstations, working and studying at breakneck speed. They were eager to witness the Phoenix's rebirth and leave everyone speechless. The Phoenix Research Group was now arguably the most important research base in Xia Kingdom. The situation here was constantly being reported to the old man by Han Zhengwen. "Academician Han, how's the base? When will we be able to develop one initial mecha?" Hearing the old man's question, Han Zhengwen replied seriously, "Old man, the initial mecha is probably not going to be developed. Indeed, the entire Phoenix research base was focused on the Phoenix, so why would anyone think about developing the initial mecha?" Hearing Han Zhengwen's words, the old man frowned. What did this mean? Fuxing was the group leader, investing a lot of funds, manpower, and resources, and yet he said it couldn't be built. The old man was, after all, a person of high status and power. Even a single word from him, over the phone, made Han Zhengwen feel immense pressure. Seeing this, Han Zhengwen quickly explained, "Sir, it's not what you think. It's like this." Chapter 218. The old man prepares to publicly disclose his personal information about the revival. That kid, he actually tricked me. After hearing Han Zhengwen's explanation, the old man's brows relaxed, and he shook his head, a helpless smile appearing on his face. If he had known about the existence of mecha technology like the Phoenix, he definitely wouldn't have sold the initial mecha. Never mind, it's already worth it. The old man was just saying that. Although the initial mecha wasn't the newest and wasn't as valuable as before, it still had some value. Han Zhengwen didn't dare to interrupt the old man and just listened quietly. However, from the old man's words, Han Zhengwen fell into deep thought. Judging from the way he was addressed, he shouldn't be very old. Who was so bold as to dare to trick an old man? Combining this with what he had just heard, Han Zhengwen had some guesses. The age of Fuxing shouldn't include an old man. The old man is 69 years old this year, so Fuxing should be under 69. Although it was just a guess about Fuxing's age, it was enough to excite Han Zhengwen. After all, this meant that he knew one more piece of information about Fuxing than others. However, despite this, Han Zhengwen kept the matter to himself. Such a confidential matter must not be revealed. It would be of no benefit to the country or himself. The Phoenix is of great importance. You must fully cooperate with Fuxing to develop it as soon as possible. However, during the process, you must also pay attention to your health and get enough rest. When the Phoenix is successfully developed, I will remember your great contribution. The old man's encouraging words immediately excited Han Zhengwen. Yes, sir, mission accomplished. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Zhulin's signal transmission device is phenomenal. With it, anywhere on this planet, we can lock onto and transmit information. If this is used on Special Forces members performing missions in harsh environments, It will allow for timely location tracking and assistance in case of crisis. 5G and 6G are practically utterly defeated by it. At this moment, in the Research Institute of a military base in the capital, when the data on Xiulin was presented to relevant experts for study, these renowned experts were quickly astonished by Xiulin's series of amazing functions. As a leading figure in the field of mobile communications, Chen Yang developed a strong interest in Xiulin's information transmission method. Through so much video data, these people had already learned about Xiulin's virtual functions and understood its working principle. However, Chen Yang had always wondered how such a small object like Xiulin could possibly store a large amount of information. That meant it must be connected to a server. However, given the massive and timely information transmission capacity demonstrated by Xiulin, even ordinary dedicated fiber optic lines might not meet its data transmission requirements. So how did Su Zhe manage to use it even with unstable outdoor networks? These questions were finally answered today, after receiving Xiulin's technical data. It turned out that Xiulin's signal data transmission didn't use the broadband from the three major telecom operators, nor satellite signals, but a completely unprecedented data transmission method. This signal transmission method had high penetration, allowing signal transmission in any enclosed space. In other words, those so-called signal isolating rooms, exam room jammers, etc., would be useless against it. Through preliminary analysis of this signal transmission technology, it was clear that this technology completely overturned existing signal transmission methods, employing entirely new technology. Su Zhe named this mobile communication technology follow the wind ears, its meaning being just like that of someone with super hearing. No, this technology is of great significance and requires specialized research. If it is applied on a large scale, it will bring unimaginable changes to our lives. We need to study it as soon as possible, but before that, we need to tell our teacher. With the teacher's participation, the research can be conducted more quickly and thoroughly. No sooner said than done. Chen Yang took the relevant technology of following the wind ear, said goodbye, and left the military base, heading towards his teacher's location. Have you heard? It's said that academician Han revealed that when Dean Han was chatting with an elderly person, he accidentally learned that the leader of the Fuxing team was under 68 years old. Yes, I heard that too. With so much research experience, I thought the leader of the Fuxing team was at least 80 or 90 years old. I didn't expect him to be so young. That word sounds strange, but the meaning is correct. Hello, academician Han. Just then, the researchers who were discussing this happened to see Hans Hengwen passing by, greeted him, and quickly left with their heads down. However, Hans Hengwen had heard their conversation clearly. He was utterly baffled. He hadn't revealed this information, so how had it spread? As the person involved, how could he not remember whether he had spoken or not? He clearly hadn't said anything, so why was this news circulating? And the content was indeed true. Back in his office, Hans Hengwen immediately arranged for someone to trace the source of the rumor. He wanted to see who had spread the news. After searching around, he still couldn't find the source. The information he received was that the news spread simultaneously. Only the two of them knew about Hans Hengwen's conversation with the old man. Since it wasn't him, there was only one possibility. Thinking of this, Hans Hengwen's expression immediately became serious. The old man must have a reason for doing this. And that reason was very likely the old man's plan to gradually reveal his identity information. Chapter 219 Communication Technology, which I studied 8 years ago. Fuxing, hidden behind the scenes for so many years, is the country finally about to announce it to the world? If so, then Hans Hengwen no longer bothered to deny or investigate to spread the rumors about the research base. Let the rumors spread. After all these years, the doubts he had about Fuxing were finally about to be resolved. Chen Yang's teacher was named Yang Shengli, one of the earliest overseas returnees to work in the field of communications. He made enormous contributions to the country's communications field, building it from scratch. Because of his significant contributions, Yang Shengli was an academician, a recipient of state subsidies, and one of the few recipients of the National Medal. Although nearly 90 years old, his skin had become loose with age, and age spots had inevitably appeared on his face, but he was still quite energetic, clear-headed, and agile. When Chen Yang went to find Yang Shengli and his wife were busy in the yard like ordinary people, sitting on small wooden stools, helping his wife pick and wash vegetables and bask in the sun. Teacher's wife, hello, When Chen Yang excitedly appeared before Yang Shengli with the technical materials related to super ears, Yang Shengli, seeing Chen Yang's impatient appearance, said sternly, "Little Chen, you're over 50 years old, not a young man anymore, still so impetuous and lacking in composure." Faced with Yang Shengli's criticism, Chen Yang just scratched his head, standing there like a child who had done something wrong, not daring to say anything more. "Alright, little Chen has finally come all this way, why the long face?" Hearing what his wife said, Yang Shengli said, "He usually doesn't come here unless there's something wrong." "So, what's the matter, teacher?" "It's like this, today I obtained a communication technology. Aren't you always concerned about the state of our country's communication technology?" So I rushed over. Hearing Chen Yang's explanation, Yang Shengli's expression softened a bit. He said, "At least you remember your teacher. Come on, come inside." Saying this, Yang Shengli made a move to stand up from the stool. Seeing this, Chen Yang quickly went over and helped Yang Shengli up. Upon entering the room, Chen Yang skillfully took out a hard drive and connected it to the computer's data interface. He then found the technical data related to follow the wind ears on the hard drive and showed it to Yang Shengli. While Yang Shengli was looking at it, Chen Yang said, "Teacher, haven't you always said you wanted to see a communication technology that can ignore complex locations and break through the current limitations of communication technology development in your lifetime? This Follow the Wind Ears is such a technology. By the way, teacher, Follow the Wind Ears is the name the technology's developers gave it. I think this name is very suitable for this technology." As Chen Yang introduced the situation of Follow the Wind Ears, Yang Shengli's expression gradually became serious, and his eyes revealed a sharp and earnest look. "Chen Yang, where did you get this technology? Who developed it?" At first, Yang Shengli didn't react much to the technical data, but after looking at some details of Follow the Wind Ears, he felt a sense of familiarity with this so-called Follow the Wind Ears technical data. The core theory of this technology was something Yang Shengli had heard about at a conference of the Thousand Talents program 8 years ago. The person who mentioned it was none other than Zifeng, the company behind online video calls. At the time, Mr. Yang had only heard rumors of Zifeng's glorious achievements but hadn't had much contact with him. Unaware of Zifeng's true capabilities, he harbored some skepticism. However, when he heard the core theory of this epoch-making mobile communication technology, Mr. Yang was utterly astonished. If this core theory could be confirmed, then communication technology would undergo a revolution. After the meeting, Mr. Yang immediately returned to his research institute to study the theory. However, the communication theory was far too complex, profound, and difficult to understand, and progress was hampered by the technology and domestic infrastructure available at the time. After a year of dedicated research, he made no progress. He then tried to contact Zifeng, but to no avail. Mr. Yang knew that without Zifeng's help, he had no hope of breaking through this technology in his lifetime. Therefore, he gave up and chose to retire. He just didn't expect that this core theory would reappear before him today. Not only that, but it also told him that this core theory had been thoroughly researched and applied in actual combat. Old Master Yang Shengli needed to get to the bottom of this from Chen Yang, to see where this technology came from and who researched it. Seeing Old Master Yang Shengli's serious expression, Chen Yang assumed it was because of the technology's advanced nature and quickly said, "Teacher, this technology was just purchased by the country from a private individual this morning. This communication technology is attached to a virtual imaging device called Candle Dragon. The developer's name is Suzette, an honorary professor at Imperial University." An honorary professor at Imperial University, Suzette. Hearing this name, Old Master Yang Shengli frowned deeply, searching his memory, but found nothing. "Teacher, what's wrong?" Chen Yang then realized that Old Master Yang Shengli's focus wasn't what he had thought. "Do you remember what happened to me 8 years ago?" Although he didn't understand why Grandpa Yang Shengli brought up something from 8 years ago, Chen Yang knew exactly what had happened. So he quickly replied, "Of course I remember. That noon, I don't know what happened to you, Professor, but you kept muttering to yourself, and then you started a year-long research project, working day and night." Chapter 220. Suzette was already an academician 8 years ago. "Teacher, do you know that in less than a year, your hair turned gray, your eyes became sunken, and your mental state was terrible? You looked almost 10 years older. In the end, it seems you realized something, stopped researching cutting-edge fields, and chose to retire." Speaking of this, Chen Yang felt a little scared. At that time, Grandpa Yang Shengli's physical and mental condition was really too bad. He consulted a professional doctor, who said that if he continued, Grandpa Yang Shengli might suddenly die at any time. But in the end, he was able to get over it and chose to retire to take care of his health. Teacher, why are you asking about this? Chen Yang asked Grandpa Yang Shengli curiously. Because the core theory I was researching at the time was also the core theory of following the wind's ear. At that time, because I couldn't find a breakthrough in this core theory, I was like a man possessed, frantically researching day and night. Later, I realized that it was impossible to succeed in the research, so I let it go, and that's how things happened. Seeing that Chen Yang seemed to have something to say but hesitated, Grandpa Yang Shengli continued. Are you trying to say why I didn't tell you? Hearing Grandpa Yang's question, Chen Yang nodded quickly. 8 years ago, if he had been able to access the core theory of follow the wind ear, he would surely have achieved something in this field 8 years later, instead of feeling like he'd seen a god when he saw the follow the wind ear technology. He felt that his previous research was like child's play. As your teacher, how could I not understand your level and personality? I know I would tell you the core theory, but your stubborn personality would lead you astray and affect your future development. Moreover, the key is that although this core theory seems very likely to be realized, countless theories in history have failed. At that time, you were at a crucial moment in your election as an academician. Even if I told you, would you abandon your original plan to do something so risky? Therefore, I didn't tell you. Hearing what Grandpa Yang said, Chen Yang fell silent. Yes, if he had really done that back then, the reality might indeed be as Grandpa Yang said, he most likely wouldn't have researched this technology. Alright, that's all in the past. Answer me now, do you know where Suza is? I'm going to find him. Grandpa Yang Shengli returned to the main topic, asking Chen Yang. Grandpa Yang Shengli was very curious about what Suzette, who had successfully developed follow the wind ears, looked like. He wanted to meet him and discuss it. After speaking, remembering Chen Yang's earlier words, he muttered to himself, by the way, you said Suza is an honorary professor at Imperial University, right? He should be at Imperial University. I'm going to find him. Upon hearing Grandpa Yang Shengli's question and seeing him so eager to go to Imperial University, Chen Yang quickly replied, Professor, don't worry, Suze isn't at Imperial University, he's in Hongdu. I see. Hearing that Suze was in Hongdu, Grandpa Yang Shengli's tone carried a hint of disappointment. You brat, watch your mouth. You're not going to call Suze by his name like that. You two might be close in age, but seniority comes first. Be respectful in your address, teacher. You've got it wrong. Hearing Yang Shengli say he was about the same age as Suzette, Chen Yang quickly explained, Teacher, are you mistaken? Suzette is only in his early 20s, not even 30 yet. Seriously? Suzette isn't even 30 yet. He's 56, almost 60. The age difference is huge. Hearing Chen Yang's words, Old Master Yang Shengli exclaimed in surprise, What did you say? Not even 30. This was truly astonishing news for Old Master Yang Shengli. How could Suze be under 30? Are you mistaken, teacher? You're wronging me. How could I be mistaken about something like this? Suze is so young and handsome, he couldn't possibly be the same age as me. Teacher, you don't know, Suze is very famous online right now. If you search his name, all his basic information will come up. His age is definitely not fake. Afraid Yang Shengli wouldn't believe him. Chen Yang even took out his phone and specifically searched for Suze's information, showing it to him. Seeing the information, Yang Shengli confirmed that Chen Yang hadn't spoken. Now, Old Master Yang Shengli felt very strange. Impossible. How could he be so young? He knew that Old Master Yang Shengli had listened to the recording of that meeting countless times to study the core theory of following the wind's ear. While he couldn't recite the content perfectly, he could recall the important points word for word. Old Master Yang Shengli remembered that at the beginning of the meeting, the attendees were introduced. I remember the attendees at that meeting included Fuxing, some veterans like myself, academicians from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and many more who had emerged from the Thousand Talents program and were highly likely to be elected as alternate academicians. Fuxing is out of the question, such a mysterious figure has been ruled out. 8 years have passed, and not a single piece of information about him has been leaked. The youngest among those from the Thousand Talents program who were able to attend that meeting, according to Grandpa Yang Shengli, was about 35 years old. 35 8 years ago? That doesn't match Suze's age at all. At Suze's age, He couldn't possibly be an older comrade like me, since he wasn't from Fuxing or the Thousand Talents program. The only remaining participants were the attending academicians. Using the process of elimination, Grandpa Yang Shengli realized that Suze should have been an academician 8 years ago. Chapter 221. Why is Yi Yinglin in the live stream? Teacher, are you kidding me? How could Suze possibly be an academician? Chen Yang, who had been listening silently to Grandpa Yang Shengli's words, quickly waved his hand when he heard the old man say Suze was an academician. Chen Yang, was only 50 years old when he was elected an academician, while Suze was barely 28 years ago, barely an adult, and already an academician? That's ridiculous. Teacher, do you think there's another possibility? Do you think Suze wasn't a participant in the meeting, and that he learned about this core theory from others before starting the research? Chen Yang's guess was immediately rejected by Grandpa Yang Shengli. Impossible. That meeting was covered by a strict confidentiality agreement. No one can reveal the contents of the meeting. If anyone is found out, they will be prosecuted for treason. Grandpa Yang Shengli's words were firm, especially when he mentioned treason, his tone becoming even more emphatical. Seeing Grandpa Yang Shengli's words, Chen Yang knew that it wasn't what he had guessed. Treason was the most severe crime. Bearing this stigma would not only ruin the future of the individual but also the entire family, leaving them with no hope of a future. Since it was said that a leak was impossible, there was only one possibility, the possibility mentioned by Old Master Yang Shengli. Suze, upon reaching adulthood, had already become an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences without the knowledge of many. This news was truly astonishing. If it were exposed, it would cause a huge uproar and discussion. Xiao Chen, tell me in detail how this technology was discovered. Hearing Old Master Yang Shengli's question, Chen Yang recounted the ins and outs of the events of the past 2 days to Old Master Yang Shengli in detail. After hearing what Chen Yang said, Yang Shengli became very curious about the Finding Hidden Money program and quickly said, "Quick, turn on the live stream you mentioned. I want to see what Professor Su looks like." Wife, I'm home. Later that evening, seeing that it was almost time, Suze drove his Santana home. Upon returning home, Suze expected Gao Luofei to greet him, but instead found Gao Luofei, Bingbing, and a beautiful woman he didn't recognize sitting motionless on the living room sofa. A flicker of surprise crossed Suze's eyes when he saw the woman. She seemed completely unaware of his return. It was unclear whether it was because the three of them combined weren't as capable as Zhelan and Sun Li in finding the hidden stash of money, or because there was nothing in the basement. The three women spent the entire afternoon searching the basement, but found absolutely nothing. They clearly had something there, so why couldn't they find it? Unable to find anything, the three women returned to the living room sofa to rest. After some discussion, Gao Luofei suggested that they ignore Suze when he returned. With Gao Luofei, the legitimate wife, speaking, Bingbing and Yi Yinglin naturally complied. This led to the current scene. Looking at Gao Luofei's cold expression, Suze knew what she was thinking. Baby's angry, baby's unhappy, baby needs to be comforted. Although he didn't understand what was going on, Suze just smiled slightly, changed his shoes, and went to Gao Luofei's side. Baby, what's wrong? Who made you angry? Tell me, I will definitely not let him get away with it. Hearing Suze's words, Gao Luofei snorted and replied, no one made me angry, I'm angry with myself, don't worry about me. Since that's the case, then I'll go upstairs first. Saying that, Suze got up and walked towards the stairs. Seeing this, Gao Luofei snorted and said unhappily, you stinky man, I told you not to interfere, so you don't? Are you still my man? Suze had expected Gao Luofei's words, and turned to Gao Luofei and said, yes, it's because I listened to you, baby. What's this about the basement? What basement? Hearing what Gao Luofei said, Suze asked in confusion. In the basement, Suze only kept the matter of Zhulin from Gao Luofei. The items displayed there were simply products related to Zhulin's research and development. It seemed there was nothing else he was hiding from Gao Luofei. Therefore, Suze genuinely didn't understand what Gao Luofei was saying. Stop pretending. I'm asking you, why is the signal in your basement so strong? How can a normal person's basement have such a strong signal and such fast data speed? We tested it. The basement's data speed is faster than dedicated fiber optic. Hearing Gao Luofei's words, Suze finally realized what she meant. So, Gao Luofei was angry about this. What, are you feeling guilty now that I've exposed you? Gao Luofei said, noticing the change in Suze's expression. How could that be? I thought you were talking about something else, but it turns out it's this. This mobile communication is nothing, just a byproduct of the development of this hulan. Because this hulan transmits a lot of complex information in real time, it requires a high network speed. Even with dedicated fiber optic cables, the quality of this hulan will be affected during use. It is precisely because of this that follow the wind ears were developed. Oh, follow the wind ears is the technology you're thinking of? After Suze's explanation, the three women understood. So it wasn't Suze's hidden stash of money, but a byproduct of the found hulan. If that's the case, then it can't be considered hidden stash. Suze spoke casually, and Gao Luofei and the others weren't professionals in this field, so they didn't bother with it. But Ye Yinglan was different. As a communications signal researcher apprenticed under Chen Yang, she knew this technology and certainly wasn't as nonchalant as Suze made it sound. Ye Yinglan, what is she doing there? Chapter 222 Suzette, wasn't the 1,000 Talents program my idea? Teacher, this is the researcher I mentioned to you before, the one I have the most faith in. Chen Yang pointed to Ye Yinglan in the video and said to Grandpa Yang Shengli. Hearing Chen Yang's words, Grandpa Yang Shengli nodded, indicating that he understood. His mind was entirely focused on Suzette. However, looking left and right, apart from the three very beautiful girls, he didn't seem to see any boys. Xiao Chen, where is Suzette? Did you say he was here? Hearing Grandpa Yang Shengli's question, Chen Yang scratched his head and said, he's probably out. Wife, I'm back. Just then, Suze's voice came from the live broadcast room. Then the camera switched, and Yang Shengli and Chen Yang saw the handsome Suzette. Seeing this, Chen Yang said, Teacher, this is Suzette. Looking at the young Suzette, and thinking that he was an academician, Chen Yang felt quite dazed. The younger generation surpasses the older. He hadn't even realized how old he was, yet the next generation already had scientists. The heartwarming conversation between Suzette and Gao Luofei that followed was beyond Chen Yang's comprehension. Thinking back to his busy work schedule at home, Chen Yang had hardly spoken to his wife. Then he saw the sweet words between Suzette and Gao Luofei. Was this how an academician spoke to his family? Look at them, look at them. No matter how busy you are with work, you should spend time with your family. The person old Master Yang Shengli felt most indebted to in his life was his wife. Before retirement, he was always busy with work, sometimes not home for a year or two, leaving his wife to care for the children and elderly. Because of this, after retirement, old Master Yang Shengli seemed like a different person, spending his days by his wife's side, taking walks, shopping for groceries, cooking, and experiencing a different kind of happiness. Oh, hearing the wind is the technology you're thinking of. Seeing Suze's introduction on the screen, Grandpa Yang Shengli understood. The hearing the wind technology really was invented by Suzette. Naturally, academician Suze's identity was now firmly established in the minds of Grandpa Yang Shengli and Chen Yang. However, what the two didn't know was that while Suzette did attend the meeting, he didn't attend as an academician. At that moment, when Grandpa Yang Shengli and Chen Yang heard Suze's conversation with Gao Luofei and others in the video, their ears perked up again. Suzette, this is Ye Yinglan, a researcher at the Youth Academy of Sciences. Hearing Gao Luofei's introduction, Suzette nodded and greeted Ye Yinglan amicably. Hello. After exchanging greetings, Ye Yinglan, at Gao Luofei's prompting, explained the purpose of her visit. Professor Su, hello. I'm here today partly as a guest on finding the hidden money and partly because of your outstanding research capabilities and the powerful research products you've developed, including Initial Number and Candle Dragon. The Academy of Sciences is considering you for a candidate academician. Therefore, according to the relevant regulations, we're processing your application for young scientist status. However, I didn't expect you to already be a member of the 1,000 Talents program. Now it seems my visit was somewhat unnecessary. Professor Su, you've kept it so well hidden. If it weren't for today's coincidence, we wouldn't have known. However, speaking of this, Ye Yinglan didn't feel frustrated or regretful about her visit to Suze's house today. Although she ultimately didn't find Suze's hidden money or successfully register him, her discovery made the outside world aware that Suze had been a member of the 1,000 Talents program for a long time. A member of the 1,000 Talents program in his 20s is still quite a sensational matter. A 1,000 Talents program member in his early 20s? That's already broken the record for youngest, right? It looks like Professor Su is going to break the record for youngest academician candidate next. The current record for youngest academician candidate seems to be 37. If Souza is elected, he'll be almost 10 years ahead of schedule. I'm afraid few will be able to surpass that record in the future. This goddess is truly a winner in life. She's been a national sensation and renowned globally for the past 20 years, and now she'll live a happy and fulfilling life with a husband like Suzette, who has unlimited potential. She's like the protagonists in a novel. So wonderful. Compared to her, I feel like I don't even deserve to live. I'm such a failure. 1,000 Talents program member? Are you talking about me? Hearing Yi Yinglin's words, Souza subconsciously asked. The 1,000 Talents program was something Souza casually mentioned, and after discussions with relevant people, it was established as an intermediary organization between young scientists and academicians. It served to further screen and refine candidates. As one of the proposers of the 1,000 Talents program, how could Souza not know that he was a member? Professor Su, aren't you one? After saying that, Yi Yinglin noticed Souza's surprised expression. Wait a minute, this shouldn't be his expression. Shouldn't he be scratching his head or looking embarrassed and humble when he's been exposed? Why is he surprised? Gao Luofei, as Souza's wife, seeing his expression, realized that the guesses of the three of them and the many viewers in the live stream might be false. As for Bingbing, her eyes were filled with excitement. It seemed like there was some big news. The viewers in the live stream shared the same feeling. Holy crap, things seem to have taken a turn for the better. Professor Su's expression clearly shows he doesn't know about the 1,000 Talents program. Souza is probably thinking, do I even have such an identity? I don't even know myself. This is going to be good. I knew it. How could Souza be a member of the 1,000 Talents program? He's too young. Chapter 223, Gao Luofei saw the document that might expose Fuxing's identity. Professor Su, aren't you a member of the 1,000 Talents program? Yi Yinglin asked Souza again. Hearing Yi Yinglin's question, Souza said very firmly, no, I've never been a member of the 1,000 Talents program. Hearing Souza's certainty, Yi Yinglin was confused. How could this be? Where did she get it wrong? Neither a young scientist nor a member of the 1,000 Talents program. That leaves only academicians and academician candidates. Could it be that Souza is an academician candidate? How old is Suzette? Impossible. Souza's words caused Yi Yinglin's mind to churn. How could this girl be so mistaken? How could she think Souza is a member of the 1,000 Talents program? He's an academician. Chen Yang and Grandpa Yang Shengli, who had been watching the live stream closely, naturally saw what was happening. Hearing Yi Yinglin say that Souza was a member of the 1,000 Talents program, not only was Souza surprised, but the two of them shared the same expression. Professor, Yi Yinglin must have mistaken academician Su's identity for something. Let me explain. Souza is such a young academician, and given his research prowess these past few days, there's no doubt he'll become a pillar of the Xia Kingdom, accumulating countless honors and awards. Fearing Yi Yinglin might say something wrong that would negatively impact Souza's impression of her and, consequently, Yi Yinglin's future research career, Chen Yang quickly said. As he spoke, Chen Yang immediately took out his phone, searched for Yi Yinglin's number in his contacts, and dialed it. Professor, Yi Yinglin picked up her phone when it rang, only to see Chen Yang was calling. An academician as busy as Chen Yang wouldn't call unless it was something important. After exchanging glances with Suzette, Gao Luofei, and the others, she respectfully answered the call. Hello, Professor, what can I do for you? My husband isn't a member of the 1,000 Talents project, but I clearly remember seeing something with the words 1,000 Talents project on it. Since the person involved was present, and since she hadn't figured this out, Gao Luofei directly sought Souza's opinion. Honey, you really aren't a member of the 1,000 Talents project? Gao Luofei asked Suzette, holding his arm. Hearing Gao Luofei's question, Souza said firmly, of course not. If I were a member of the 1,000 Talents project, how could I not report it to my dear wife? I don't believe you for a second, Gao Luofei huffed after Souza's words. While the words were sweet, in reality, if Souza did everything this way, how would he explain the initial Mecha, the Hermes black card, or his identity as the boss of the Yaoli Glass Group? Gao Luofei didn't dwell on it too much and directly asked Souza what she was thinking. But husband, since you're not a member of the 1,000 Talents project, I seem to remember seeing some materials or objects related to the project at home. Really? I don't remember. Hearing Gao Luofei's words, Souza's heart skipped a beat. Souza had thought Gao Luofei had forgotten or hadn't seen it at all, but he hadn't expected her to have seen it and even have some recollection of it. The reason Suzette hoped Gao Luofei didn't know about this was because it could potentially expose his identity. He remembered that it was the day they moved into their new house and decorated the bridal chamber before their wedding. That day, while organizing the technical documents in the room, Gao Luofei accidentally opened one of Suzette's storage boxes. The storage box was just an ordinary storage box, but the things inside were anything but ordinary. Many of the documents inside were valuable items such as meeting minutes and files from Suzette's activities under the guise of revival. Because Suzette hadn't initially planned to get married, and no outsiders would be visiting, he hastily disposed of these valuable items. Unexpectedly, he encountered Gao Luofei, and their hasty marriage meant Suzette hadn't properly packed everything, which Gao Luofei then found. Fortunately, Suzette happened to be nearby and, seeing Gao Luofei's actions, immediately stopped her before she could fully open the storage box. Gao Luofei didn't seem too concerned about Suzette's actions at the time, busy packing other things. Seeing Gao Luofei's expression, Suzette assumed she hadn't seen it, and didn't dare ask whether she had. The matter was left at that, and Suzette was able to hide these items in his underground research base, where Gao Luofei didn't find them again. However, he didn't expect Gao Luofei to bring it up again today. Impossible. Absolutely. I remember you were right next to me. I don't believe you don't remember. As she said this, Gao Luofei tightened her grip on Suzette's arm, staring directly into his eyes. Faced with Gao Luofei's questioning, Suzette knew that saying he didn't know wouldn't be appropriate, so he started brainstorming to see if he could come up with a suitable reason. Fifei, now that you mention it, I think I vaguely remember something. Wait for me, let me think about it carefully. There definitely is. It seems to be a document or something, and the words 1,000 Talents Program are even in red. Hearing Gao Luofei's detailed description, Suzette quickly interrupted, Wife, wait, now that you mention it, it seems there really is. 666, why do I feel like Suzette is a little guilty? Guilty? This is more than just guilty, it's clearly telling our goddess that there's something fishy about what she's talking about. Although Professor Su is calmly thinking about the problem, I feel like it would be more perfect if he were anxiously wiping the sweat from his forehead in this atmosphere. If it were me, I'd be kneeling down right now. Don't you know who Suzette is? He's a professor, okay? He's protected by the Secret Service and the military. Can his mental fortitude be the same? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 I never thought I wouldn't even deserve to be called a piece of trash. Yes, it's different, but they're all still hiding money from their wives, you know. Now I watch the show every day at the beginning, where the goddess confidently says her husband doesn't hide money. Then look at that 5 billion in hidden money, the contrast is too stark. To be honest, as a woman, after experiencing this, I hope my husband hides money. Forget about Professor Su's level, even if it's only 1% of Professor Su's, I'd be happy. 1%? That's still 50 million. I'm not that greedy, 1/10,000th is fine. Brothers, see these women's faces? When we hide money, we get a beating if we're caught, and now they actually hope we hide it. It's all because of this year's troubles. Professor, is there something you need? Yi Yinglan said to Chen Yang on the other end of the phone. Upon hearing Yi Yinglan's question, Chen Yang directly addressed her, saying, Yinglan, how could you assign an identity to Academician Su without understanding the true situation? Professor, Yi Yinglan hadn't expected Chen Yang to call her about this matter, not anything else. From Chen Yang's words, she realized that even he was watching the show Finding Hidden Money. This was completely different from the Chen Yang she knew. Wasn't the professor always focused on scientific research? How could he be watching variety shows? And because she had said something wrong, he had personally called her. Wait, Academician Su. Yi Yinglan suddenly realized that Chen Yang addressed Suzette as Academician. The title of Academician wasn't something anyone could just accept. It was a symbol of status. Is it true? Could it be that Suzette was right when he said he wasn't a member of the 1,000 Talents Program? Because he wasn't actually a member of the 1,000 Talents Program, but rather an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences? Professor, you're not mistaken, are you? Suzette is an academician, This news was simply too astonishing. Yi Yinglan couldn't control her volume or emotions. Unconsciously, her voice grew louder, her words echoing in the living room. Upon hearing Yi Yinglan's words, everyone in the living room turned to look at her, her face filled with surprise as she processed this information. The live stream also shifted its focus from Suzette to Yi Yinglan. When the viewers in the live stream heard Yi Yinglan's words, the chant exploded. Holy crap! Is it true? Suzette is an academician. This is ridiculous. Are you kidding me? How old is Suzette? He's already an academician. Let me process this. From a young scientist to a member of the 1,000 Talents program, and then to an academician, that's a huge leap. He changes so quickly. Don't forget what Professor Su just said. He swore he wasn't a member of the 1,000 Talents program. Considering what happened before in our analysis, it seems like only this explanation makes sense. Suzette really is an academician or a candidate academician. This is huge news. This is definitely the most sensational news of the day. Academician Su isn't a member of the 1,000 Talents program, but an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Yinglan, I know what you're thinking. You must find it unbelievable. When I first heard this news, I felt the same way. I couldn't believe it either. However, I'm at Academician Yang's house now. Academician Yang told me this himself, and it's something we both deduced together. It can't be false. If Chen Yang hadn't taken a liking to Yi Yinglan, he wouldn't have told her so much. To further instill respect for Suzette and Yi Yinglan, Chen Yang said directly, I can't tell you too much, it would trigger the rules, but I can tell you one thing. Academician Su was already an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences 8 years ago. Upon hearing Chen Yang's words, Yi Yinglan's already overwhelming surprise intensified. 8 years ago? 8 years ago? How old was Suzette? He had just come of age, yet he was already an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Was the world too crazy, or was my understanding flawed? To become an academician so young? Just how extraordinary was Suzette? I don't need to elaborate on the value of the academician title. You should understand. I'm telling you this not to make you question your existence. You should understand my meaning. How could Yi Yinglan not understand Chen Yang's meaning? Such a young academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, how brilliant would Suzette's future be? If Yi Yinglan could latch onto such a powerful ally as Suzette, her future research path would be smooth sailing. Meanwhile, the live stream, already nearly bursting with excitement because of Suzette's academician status, crashed completely after Yi Yinglan uttered these words. He was an academician 8 years ago? What a joke. I'd almost accepted that Suzette was an academician, and I'd almost accepted the fact that I'm a good-for-nothing. But now you're telling me that Suzette was already an academician 8 years ago? Are you saying I don't even deserve to be called a good-for-nothing? 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, Suzette was just an adult, not even 20 years old. Could it be a slip of the tongue? No, it must be a slip of the tongue. This news is too sensational. Damn it, I was taking the college entrance exam, and Professor Su was already an academician. Doesn't this mean I haven't even started, and Professor Su has already reached the finish line, a finish line I could never reach in my entire life? Suzette, is Yinglan telling the truth? You were an academician 8 years ago? Bingbing looked at Suzette in disbelief and asked. As for Gao Luofei, she was completely shocked by this news and hadn't recovered yet. This. Chapter 225 Husband, when did you ever tell me you were an academician? Yinglan, is what you just said true? Suzette was an academician 8 years ago? As Yi Yinglan hung up the phone in shock, Bingbing leaned forward, staring at her with an incredulous look, trying to get a clear answer from her face. Facing the gazes of Bingbing, Gao Luofei, and the numerous viewers in the live stream, Yi Yinglan first looked at Suzette with the eyes of someone looking at a monster, then, under their watchful eyes, slowly nodded. That's right. The person who just called me was Academician Chen Yang. Academician Yang Shengli and Academician Chen Yang can both testify to this. It's definitely true. After saying this, Yi Yinglan, fearing that some people might not know Yang Shengli and Chen Yang, quickly explained to everyone. Academician Yang Shengli, a recipient of the National Medal, was among the first batch of students to return from overseas to my country. He was engaged in research and development in the field of mobile communications and can be considered a founder of mobile communications in China. Academician Chen Yang is Academician Yang Shengli's student and also the leader of my research group. He is also engaged in the field of mobile communications. After Yi Yinglan's introduction, everyone understood what kind of big shots these two were. Since Grandpa Yang is a witness, this matter is settled. As a communications major, I can tell you all with certainty that these two aren't some experts who rent out houses just because they're broke. They're top-tier figures, people even foreign countries envy. Holy crap, if that's the case, then Suze's story is true. No way, I can't be the only one shocked. Becoming an academician right after turning 18, I have to let everyone else know this, to make them realize how useless they are. Oh no, guys, my mom's already using Suze to lecture me, saying I'm still playing games at 18, while Professor Su is already an academician. 666, that's incredibly fast. Professor Su, oh no, academician Su, he's become the other people's child parents talk about so quickly. Who called my husband a gigolo? Step forward and let us see. An academician can be called a gigolo, a pretty face? I want to see what kind of person says that. If all gigolos are like this, then I'd rather our country be full of gigolos. At this moment, Bingbing looked at Suze with the same curiosity one would show a giant panda. She wanted to see what made Suze so different from others, so unique. Besides being a little more handsome, a little fairer, a little taller, and a little richer, Suze was just a guy with a nose, a mouth, 2 eyes, and 2 ears, nothing special. Why was he an academician right after turning 18, while Bingbing was still happy about getting into the Beijing Media University? The difference was huge. Husband, do you have anything to say about this? Gao Luofei, finally coming to her senses, stared intently at the familiar yet unfamiliar Suzette. At this moment, Gao Luofei's feelings were a complex mix. Happiness was certain. After all, her beloved, her bedmate, was one of the few academicians, enjoying widespread acclaim. Disappointment was also present, since Suze had kept such an honor a secret from her. Of course, pride was unavoidable. My husband is an academician. Faced with Gao Luofei's questioning, Suze maintained a calm and inscrutable expression. However, in his mind, a flock of crows flew overhead. Yes, I am an academician, but not 8 years ago. Okay? To be precise, I only became an academician 5 years ago. 8 years ago, Suze had already gained some fame in the top scientific circles in China thanks to the name revival, but he wasn't an academician. The reason he wasn't an academician wasn't because he lacked qualifications. Rather, Suze was busy with other important matters at the time and had no interest in going through the formalities. It wasn't until 3 years later, when he had some free time, that Suze officially became an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences at the request of the elders. Although he didn't know why Yang Shengli and Chen Yang thought he was an academician back then, their actions indirectly helped Suze a great deal. Suze had originally been wondering how to explain the 1,000 Talents program that Gao Luofei had seen. After this incident, Suze had a good idea. Rather than let Gao Luofei continue to press him, it was better to end the matter there. Therefore, under everyone's gaze, Suze nodded and replied to Gao Luofei, "Fifei, they are right, I am indeed an academician." Whoosh! With Suze's confirmation, the matter was considered settled. The viewers in the live stream could now freely spread the news. Breaking news! Breaking news! Professor Su is actually an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and he's been one for 8 years, record broken. At only 18 years old, he's already an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, unprecedented. The youngest academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in China has been born. Soon, various news media outlets watching the live stream began frantically publishing articles about this event. All sorts of eye-catching headlines flooded the internet, and the news spread like wildfire, with an overwhelming, all-consuming power. A young genius, only 18 years old, is already an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. After 8 years of hiding his identity, Suzette, once called a pretty boy, is actually an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, a perfect match. Gao Luofei's sweetheart has this unknown identity. Husband, if that's the case, why didn't you tell me? Having received confirmation from Suzette, Gao Luofei whispered to him. She looked like a wronged wife who had been tricked into coming to her husband's house. Actually, I already told you. Tell me, when did that happen? I don't know. Hearing Suze's words, Gao Luofei looked puzzled. She didn't remember Suzette telling her. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, Subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.